The mystery of the Sajama Lines. The Sajama Lines remain one of the greatest, yet least appreciated engineering achievements of the ancient world. Stretching across the remote Altiplano of western Bolivia, this extraordinary network of prehistoric pathways covers an astonishing area of approximately 22,000 square kilometers, making it far larger than the famous Nazca Lines of Peru. Collectively extending for an estimated 16,000 kilometers, these remarkably straight tracks have survived for thousands of years, silently crossing mountains, valleys, and open plains. Despite their immense scale, the Sajama Lines remain largely unknown outside archaeological circles, standing as a remarkable reminder of the vision, organization, and determination of the ancient people who transformed an entire landscape into something truly monumental. The lines are centered around the sacred region surrounding Nevado Sajama, Bolivia's highest mountain, which has long held deep spiritual significance for the indigenous communities of the Andes. Rather than being constructed with stones or painted onto the ground, the pathways were created by carefully removing the darker surface layer of weathered rocks and soil, exposing the lighter earth beneath. Each route measures between 1 and 3 meters in width and continues with astonishing precision across rugged terrain, often remaining perfectly straight for distances of up to 20 kilometers. Achieving this level of accuracy without modern surveying equipment, aerial observation, or advanced measuring instruments demonstrates an impressive understanding of geometry and landscape planning. The dry climate, limited vegetation, and minimal rainfall of the Altiplano have helped preserve these ancient pathways for thousands of years. The immense amount of labor required to construct the network suggests that the builders possessed a highly organized society capable of coordinating large numbers of people over many generations. Thousands upon thousands of individual sections had to be carefully cleared by hand while maintaining their remarkable alignment across difficult terrain. The finished result was not a collection of isolated pathways, but a vast interconnected network stretching across the landscape in every direction. The scale of the undertaking indicates that the project held enormous cultural and spiritual importance, motivating entire communities to contribute to its creation. Researchers believe the Sajama Lines formed an extensive system of sacred pilgrimage routes, linking important ceremonial locations throughout the region. Rather than serving as simple roads, the pathways connected shrines known as huacas, ancient burial towers called chulpas, settlements, and prominent natural landmarks. Walking these carefully prepared routes was likely an important religious practice that strengthened social bonds between distant communities while reinforcing their spiritual relationship with the surrounding landscape. Every journey along the lines may have carried ceremonial meaning, transforming ordinary travel into an act of devotion. Beyond their religious significance, the lines may also have served practical purposes that were essential for survival within the harsh environment of the Altiplano. The high-altitude plateau presents difficult conditions where reliable water sources, grazing areas, and trade routes are widely separated. The carefully maintained pathways would have provided dependable navigation across an otherwise featureless landscape, guiding travelers safely between seasonal resources and neighboring communities. Some researchers also believe certain alignments may have helped track seasonal changes by observing the movements of the sun and stars, providing valuable knowledge for farming and herding. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Sajama Lines is that they never completely disappeared from local life. Long after the original builders had faded into history, indigenous communities continued using many of the ancient routes. As new religious traditions emerged following the arrival of European settlers, the pathways were gradually adapted to connect churches and newer sacred locations, demonstrating an extraordinary continuity between ancient beliefs and later cultural practices. The landscape itself remained sacred, even as traditions evolved across the centuries. The mysterious Hessdalen radar anomalies. The Hessdalen lights remain one of the most fascinating unexplained mysteries in modern science, transforming a quiet valley in central Norway into an internationally recognized center for atmospheric research. For decades, residents have reported glowing orbs silently drifting across the valley, changing color, hovering in place, and moving in ways that appear to challenge conventional explanations. While these unusual lights were once regarded as little more than local folklore, the introduction of sophisticated scientific equipment changed the conversation entirely. Rather than relying solely on eyewitness testimony, researchers began collecting measurable data, revealing that the mysterious lights are accompanied by physical characteristics that continue to puzzle scientists. The greatest breakthrough came with the introduction of radar systems during the investigations carried out by Project Hessdalen and later international research teams. Radar operates by transmitting electromagnetic waves and measuring the reflections that return from physical objects. Repeated observations demonstrated that the glowing lights frequently produced strong radar returns, confirming that they possessed measurable physical properties rather than being simple visual illusions or atmospheric reflections. The visible objects and the radar signatures often matched perfectly, suggesting that the luminous orbs were accompanied by dense, structured formations capable of reflecting radio waves. Perhaps the most astonishing aspect of the radar data involves the movement of these mysterious objects. Researchers have documented lights remaining perfectly stationary despite strong winds before accelerating with extraordinary speed in only moments. Some radar observations have indicated velocities approaching approximately 30,000 kilometers per hour, figures that far exceed the performance of conventional aircraft operating within Earth's atmosphere. Equally remarkable is the apparent absence of the effects normally associated with such incredible speeds. Despite these dramatic movements, witnesses have reported no deafening sonic booms or destructive shockwaves, suggesting that the phenomenon interacts with the surrounding atmosphere in an entirely different manner from any known technology. The mystery becomes even more intriguing when comparing radar observations with visual recordings. On several occasions, radar equipment has detected fast-moving targets while cameras recorded nothing visible in the sky. At other times, brilliant lights have been captured by cameras without producing a corresponding radar return. This unusual behavior suggests that the phenomenon may exist in different physical states, sometimes becoming highly reflective to radio waves while remaining invisible to the human eye, and at other times appearing brilliantly illuminated without displaying the characteristics normally expected of a solid object. Researchers have also documented remarkable changes in the appearance of the lights. Large, glowing spheres have reportedly separated into multiple smaller objects that immediately traveled along independent paths before later disappearing. Both radar systems and video equipment have recorded these transformations, indicating that the phenomenon is capable of changing shape while maintaining extraordinary stability. Such behavior has made the Hessdalen lights one of the most unusual atmospheric mysteries ever subjected to long-term scientific observation. To investigate these events, permanent monitoring stations have been established within the valley. These facilities operate throughout the year using radar systems, optical cameras, infrared sensors, spectrometers, magnetometers, and radio receivers. Every observation is carefully compared with weather conditions, aircraft movements, migrating birds, and other known sources of interference. The collected data has repeatedly revealed unusual electromagnetic activity accompanying many of the sightings, including distinctive radio frequency signals and measurable Doppler shifts that confirm genuine movement through the atmosphere. Several scientific explanations have been proposed to account for the extraordinary observations. One widely discussed theory suggests that the geology beneath the valley acts like a vast natural electrical generator. Rich deposits of iron, copper, zinc, and quartz may produce electrical charges through tectonic stress, releasing energy into the atmosphere where stable plasma formations could develop. Another proposal focuses on naturally occurring radon gas and ionized dust particles, which may combine to create unusually long-lasting luminous structures capable of reflecting radar waves while producing the colorful displays seen by observers. Although these ideas explain many aspects of the phenomenon, they do not fully account for every recorded observation. The reported speeds, sudden directional changes, and apparent ability of the lights to divide into separate objects continue to challenge existing models of atmospheric physics. As a result, the Hessdalen lights remain one of the world's most important natural laboratories for studying unexplained aerial mysteries. The mystery of the 60,000-ton structure underneath the Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee has long been celebrated as one of the world's most historically and spiritually significant bodies of water. For thousands of years, civilizations have flourished along its shores, leaving behind remarkable traces of their existence. Yet one of the lake's greatest mysteries remained completely hidden beneath its surface until the early years of the 21st century. In 2003, researchers conducting a routine sonar survey of the lakebed made an astonishing discovery. Resting silently beneath the water was an enormous cone-shaped monument built entirely from volcanic basalt boulders. Far from being a natural rock formation, the structure displayed every sign of deliberate human construction. Its sheer size immediately captured the attention of archaeologists, as the monument weighs an estimated 60,000 tons, rises nearly 40 feet from the lake floor, and measures approximately 230 feet in diameter. In terms of scale, it comfortably exceeds the footprint of England's famous Stonehenge, making it one of the largest prehistoric stone monuments ever identified beneath water. The discovery immediately raised profound questions about the people responsible for such an extraordinary undertaking. Dating the monument has proven challenging because of its submerged location, but researchers generally place its construction somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 years ago, during the late Chalcolithic period or the early Bronze Age. This was an era when societies throughout the region were evolving from relatively small farming communities into larger settlements with organized leadership and increasingly sophisticated social structures. The monument itself provides compelling evidence that its builders possessed remarkable engineering abilities and the capacity to organize large numbers of workers toward a common objective. The structure consists entirely of unworked basalt stones, many of them measuring several feet across. Even more remarkable is the fact that these particular volcanic rocks are not naturally found at the site where the monument now rests. The nearest suitable basalt deposits lie more than a mile away. This means that thousands of heavy stones had to be quarried, transported across the landscape, and carefully stacked into a stable, towering formation. Such a project would have required careful planning, reliable food supplies for the workforce, skilled leadership, and a shared cultural purpose that inspired an enormous collective effort. Although the monument now rests beneath the waters of the Sea of Galilee, researchers believe it was never intended to be underwater. Geological evidence suggests the structure originally stood on dry land before dramatic environmental changes transformed the landscape. The Jordan Rift Valley is one of the most active tectonic regions in the world, and over thousands of years, shifting faults, gradual land movement, and changing water levels slowly submerged the surrounding plain. Rather than constructing an underwater monument, its builders likely watched it dominate the landscape as a towering landmark before nature gradually claimed it beneath the rising waters. Divers who have examined the site describe a tightly packed mound of stones with no obvious signs of internal chambers, entrances, or carefully shaped masonry. Instead, the monument resembles a gigantic cairn, a type of stone mound created by human hands. Because the structure appears to be solid throughout, archaeologists face significant challenges when attempting to investigate its interior. Any large-scale excavation could damage a monument that has survived for thousands of years, forcing researchers to balance scientific curiosity with careful preservation. The absence of definitive evidence has led to several fascinating theories regarding the monument's original purpose. One of the leading ideas suggests that it served as a massive burial monument or memorial for an important ruling family or influential members of an ancient community. Similar stone monuments have been discovered throughout Europe and the Middle East, where they often marked significant ceremonial locations or honored prominent individuals. The monument's proximity to the ancient city of Beit Yera, which flourished during the early Bronze Age, strengthens the possibility that the structure was closely connected to the city's political or spiritual life. Another theory suggests the monument may have served a practical purpose connected with fishing. Large stone formations naturally create sheltered habitats where fish gather, breed, and seek protection. A third possibility views the monument as a ceremonial gathering place where ancient communities assembled during important seasonal events. Throughout the surrounding region, several megalithic sites are believed to have played significant spiritual roles, serving as locations for rituals, celebrations, and observations connected to the changing seasons. The hacking group Anonymous has recently brought attention to a chilling and mysterious phenomenon occurring throughout the United States, an unusual connection between missing persons cases and cave systems. In a widely shared post, the group highlighted data showing that the locations of unexplained disappearances appear to align with extensive cave networks spread across the country. This revelation has sparked intense speculation, with many questioning whether something strange and possibly sinister is happening within these remote and largely uncharted underground spaces. One of the most unsettling aspects of this phenomenon is how closely maps of missing persons cases match up with the locations of known cave systems. Several independent researchers have confirmed this correlation, noting that many disappearances occur near national parks, deep forests, and areas with significant underground passageways. While some might argue that the connection is purely coincidental, others point out that the sheer number of cases following this pattern suggests otherwise. Hikers and outdoor enthusiasts have long reported bizarre incidents in and around cave systems, with some vanishing without a trace, while others mysteriously reappear miles away from their last known location. Some individuals who have gone missing and later returned are unable to recall what happened during the time they were lost. This has fueled speculation that caves may serve as a gateway to something unknown, whether it be strange natural phenomena, undiscovered creatures, or even hidden government experiments. The US government has reportedly studied these areas, leading to further speculation about what might be happening beneath the surface. As curiosity surrounding the connection between missing persons cases and cave systems grows, independent investigators and researchers have reported unsettling encounters with unknown individuals, warning them to stop their work. Numerous accounts describe men in black suits approaching those who dig too deeply into the mystery, issuing cryptic warnings or outright threats. These encounters have only fueled speculation that there is more to the cave system phenomenon than what is publicly acknowledged. Many of those who have attempted to gather information on missing persons cases near caves claim they have been watched, followed, or confronted by these mysterious figures. Some have received untraceable phone calls instructing them to abandon their research, while others have been visited in person by men who refuse to identify themselves. Their message is always the same: stop asking questions, stop investigating, and stop searching for answers. The intimidation tactics have led many to believe that there is something being deliberately concealed. The involvement of these strange individuals raises alarming questions. If the disappearances are merely natural accidents, why would there be an effort to silence those investigating them? Researchers argue that such warnings only confirm that something significant is happening beneath the surface, something that those in power do not want the public to uncover. Documents and testimonies suggest that agencies have conducted research into underground structures, seismic activity, and other anomalies. Some believe that caves may be home to classified experiments or secret installations hidden from the public eye. Others entertain the possibility that caves could harbor something far more mysterious, such as unknown life forms or subterranean civilizations. Throughout history, caves have been the subject of myths and legends, often portrayed as the dwelling places of supernatural beings or lost worlds. Native American tribes, for example, have long told stories of strange creatures living beneath the earth. Some researchers wonder if these ancient legends hold a grain of truth, pointing to modern-day disappearances as potential evidence of hidden dangers lurking underground. The sheer vastness of the United States cave systems adds another layer to the mystery. Some of the largest cave networks, such as Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, extend for hundreds of miles, with many unexplored passages. The possibility of vast, interconnected underground regions raises questions about whether people who go missing near these areas could somehow end up deeper underground, either by accident or through circumstances beyond their control. One of the most famous cases that adds to this mystery is that of experienced hikers who suddenly vanish in remote regions, only to be found days or weeks later with no memory of how they survived. In some instances, their bodies are discovered in locations that would have been nearly impossible to reach on foot, let alone in a disoriented or injured state. These cases defy logic and conventional search and rescue patterns, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. Despite growing interest in the connection between missing persons cases and cave systems, there has been little official acknowledgement of the phenomenon. Law enforcement agencies continue to classify most disappearances as accidents, attributing them to disorientation, exposure, or wildlife encounters. However, for those who follow the data, the pattern is difficult to ignore. Anonymous's post has only fueled the debate, pushing more people to investigate the link between caves and unexplained vanishings. The mystery surrounding America's cave systems remains unsolved. Whether the strange activity is due to natural dangers, undiscovered species, government experiments, or something beyond human understanding, one thing is certain: there is more to these underground landscapes than meets the eye. In the shadowy depths of Cold War espionage and classified government experiments, there exists a peculiar chapter in the history of US intelligence, a chapter where the limits of consciousness, perception, and ancient religious artifacts intertwined. Among the most extraordinary revelations to emerge from this period is the claim that the Central Intelligence Agency, through its once classified remote viewing program known as Project Sunstreak, may have uncovered the location of one of history's most mysterious and sacred relics, the Ark of the Covenant. Dated 1988, a declassified document from Project Sunstreak outlines the use of a psychic spy, known as a remote viewer, tasked with locating the Ark of the Covenant. Remote viewing, a technique once mocked and dismissed as pseudoscience, was quietly funded and studied by US intelligence for years, used in attempts to perceive locations, objects, or events inaccessible by conventional means. This method was born from the belief, supported by emerging theories in quantum physics, that consciousness is not bound by space or time. Rooted in the idea of non-local perception and the interconnectedness of all matter and energy, remote viewing posits that the human mind can traverse space, reaching targets thousands of miles away, by simply tuning into them mentally. According to the document, the remote viewer's task was straightforward but staggering in implication. Describe and locate the Ark of the Covenant. The viewer's report painted a vivid and almost cinematic picture of a mysterious container fashioned of wood and overlaid with gold and silver. The form of the object was likened to a coffin, detailed with ornate seraphim, six-winged angelic beings described in ancient religious texts. The description matches historical and biblical accounts of the Ark, a sacred object said to have been built by Moses under divine instruction, used to carry the Ten Commandments and, allegedly, capable of supernatural feats ranging from stopping rivers to destroying armies. The viewer described not just the object, but its surroundings with an impressive degree of specificity. The Ark, the report stated, was located underground, hidden in a space that was dark and damp beneath the surface of a place somewhere in the Middle East. Visual cues observed during the session included mosque domes, Arabic-speaking individuals dressed in white, and buildings with a distinctly Middle Eastern architectural style. One particularly clear figure was described as a man with black hair, dark eyes, and a prominent moustache, suggesting a very specific and real-world context for what might otherwise be dismissed as pure imagination. The container's environment was described with atmospheric detail, underground and wet, perhaps hinting at a cave or buried chamber long forgotten. Yet it was not only the physical description that stirred intrigue, but the spiritual and metaphysical impressions the remote viewer sensed. The Ark's purpose, according to the viewer, was not simply historical or ceremonial. It was imbued with a deep significance, associated with resurrection, unity, memory, and homage. It represented a kind of spiritual technology, a transmitter of information, and a vessel of historical knowledge far beyond modern understanding. What set this particular session apart from standard archaeological speculation was the claim that the Ark was protected, not by men, but by non-human entities. These beings, according to the viewer, were not merely symbolic. They were real and active in guarding the object, ensuring it would not be disturbed until a specific time predetermined by forces unknown. Only those authorized to do so, the report stated, could access the Ark. Attempts to force it open would result in immediate and fatal consequences for the violator, as protectors wielding a mysterious form of energy or power would intervene. Such a claim mirrored many religious traditions and myths surrounding the Ark, which long warned that improper handling could bring instant death. One of the most interesting aspects of the account lies in its tone, neither exaggerated nor overtly mystical. The viewer relayed information in straightforward language, adhering to the controlled procedures of military-grade remote viewing. There was no flamboyant storytelling or emotional embellishment. The object, its composition, the layered design, and the details of its surroundings were described with clinical clarity. The figure being remote-viewed reported an inner container within the main container, an element that sparked theories about whether the Ark held not just the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments, but other unknown artifacts or relics. The CIA's interest in the Ark of the Covenant may strike some as outlandish, but during the height of Cold War-era psychic experimentation, such missions were not uncommon. From locating enemy missile bases to investigating potential alien artifacts, the use of psychic spies was an unconventional but surprisingly well-documented aspect of American intelligence operations. These programs were backed by research institutions such as SRI International and were at times supported by physicists and military officers who believed in the potential of the human mind to tap into a wider field of perception. While the 1988 document does not state a precise geographical coordinate for the Ark's location, many who have analyzed the report have speculated that the location described could be somewhere within or near Jerusalem, possibly beneath the Temple Mount or in a buried chamber near the Dead Sea. Other interpretations point to Petra, in Jordan, or even the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Aksum, Ethiopia, a location already steeped in legends of housing the Ark. Yet, if the CIA's remote viewing session is to be taken at face value, the most accurate clue may lie not in traditional sites, but in a hidden location unmarked by conventional history, where mosque domes are visible, Arabic is spoken, and the desert conceals a powerful mystery. Skeptics have long debated the validity of remote viewing as a technique, citing inconsistent results and lack of empirical repeatability. However, supporters argue that the technique, when conducted under controlled conditions by trained individuals, has yielded information that could not have been otherwise known. The description of the Ark, its dual containers, the presence of seraphim, and the dire consequences for tampering all align with numerous religious accounts, particularly those in the Hebrew Bible and later mystical texts, which describe the Ark as a dangerous and holy vessel whose power should not be trifled with. Moreover, the inclusion of spiritual and informational components, suggesting that the Ark stores not just physical items, but metaphysical or even encoded knowledge, places the object in a category that bridges the sacred and the scientific. Some theorists have even proposed that the Ark may represent ancient technology capable of emitting energy or acting as a communication device. The idea that it could bring people together and be a conduit of divine information aligns with theories that posit the Ark was far more than a container. It was a symbol of covenant and a literal tool of interaction between humanity and the divine. The notion that such an object is protected by non-human intelligences further adds to the mystique. Were these entities described by the remote viewer literal guardians in some spiritual dimension, or could they be interpreted as advanced beings, possibly extraterrestrial, who placed the Ark and have been monitoring it ever since? The description of a power that can destroy those who try to open it improperly evokes images found in stories like those of the ancient Hebrew priest who died after touching the Ark, or the cinematic depiction in Raiders of the Lost Ark, a mythologized but strangely resonant vision. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the entire viewing was the idea that the Ark cannot be opened until the time is deemed correct. This suggests a programmed moment, a prophetic convergence of circumstances when the Ark's true purpose will be revealed. The idea echoes eschatological themes found in Abrahamic religions, where the return of sacred objects accompanies a transformation of humanity or the arrival of a messianic age. Whether one interprets such ideas as religious prophecy or encoded myth, the implication is clear. The Ark is not lost. It is hidden, protected, and waiting. The CIA's interest in the Ark and its use of remote viewing may forever remain on the fringe of mainstream historical inquiry, but for those willing to explore the boundaries of perception and consciousness, the 1988 Project Sunstreak document offers more than just a glimpse of a forgotten artifact. It offers a narrative that challenges our understanding of history, spirituality, and the power of the human mind. For now, the Ark of the Covenant remains hidden, buried beneath sand, stone, or perhaps guarded by entities beyond our comprehension. But in a dimly lit room over 3 decades ago, one remote viewer may have brushed against its presence, not with their hands but with their mind, and revealed to the world that history's greatest treasure was never really gone. It was always just waiting to be seen. The Ark of the Covenant remains one of the most enduring and mysterious relics in the history of human civilization. Said to have been constructed under divine instruction during the Israelites' journey across the Sinai Desert, the Ark is more than just a sacred object. It is a symbol of divine power, judgment, and protection. According to biblical tradition, as the Israelites fled Egypt and wandered through the desert, Moses relayed God's direct command to construct a vessel that would house the tablets inscribed with the 10 Commandments. These tablets were not ordinary stone, but believed to be imbued with supernatural power, some even suggesting they were forged with gold from the Garden of Eden itself, representing the cosmic moral balance between good and evil. The physical specifications of the Ark were detailed with extraordinary precision. God instructed the Israelites to build it from acacia wood, measuring approximately 3.75 feet in length and 2.25 feet in width, and then to overlay it entirely in gold, both inside and out. A cherub was to be placed atop the lid, its wings stretching upward to cast a sacred shadow over what became known as the mercy seat. To imagine a nomadic people wandering the harsh wilderness for 4 decades, building such an ornate and precise masterpiece from scratch using rudimentary tools seems a daunting, almost miraculous task. For this reason, tradition holds that God bestowed divine skill upon a single chosen craftsman, empowering him with the abilities necessary to complete the Ark to exact specifications. Over time, the Ark came to be seen as more than just a container for the 10 Commandments. It became a vessel of divine intervention. As the Israelites moved toward the land of Canaan, the Ark supposedly aided them in supernatural ways. One of the most famous accounts tells of the Ark halting the flow of the Jordan River, allowing the Israelites to cross its dry bed. In battle, it was believed to bring God's wrath upon their enemies, ensuring victory. However, its immense power was not without risk. When the Ark was stolen by adversaries, legend has it that plagues, disease, and death followed the thieves, forcing them to return it. The Ark's journey continued as the Israelites settled and established their society. After a time in Shiloh, the Ark was moved by King David and later entrusted to his son Solomon, who placed it in the Holy of Holies within the First Temple in Jerusalem. There, it remained until it vanished. Around 587 BC, during the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem, the Ark disappeared from historical record. No definitive account of its fate was ever documented, and from that point forward, the Ark of the Covenant transitioned from a sacred artifact to a sacred mystery. Since then, scholars, theologians, and adventurers alike have speculated on the Ark's final resting place. One of the most compelling and widely accepted theories is that it resides in Ethiopia, specifically within the St. Mary of Zion Cathedral in Aksum. According to this belief, the Ark was taken to Ethiopia for safekeeping and remains there to this day, watched over by a single monk known as the Guardian. This individual devotes his life to protecting the Ark, and only he is permitted to view it. Despite the cathedral's claims, no independent verification or scientific examination has been allowed, leaving scholars and believers to rely on faith, oral tradition, and circumstantial evidence. Other theories abound. The second book of Maccabees claims that the prophet Jeremiah hid the Ark in a cave on Mount Nebo, and that it would not be rediscovered until the time of God's choosing. According to this view, the Ark's reappearance would herald an era of divine mercy and spiritual awakening. Some theologians maintain that the Ark will be revealed only with the arrival of the Messiah, a moment prophesied to coincide with the redemption of the righteous and the ushering in of a new divine age. Others take a more apocalyptic approach, suggesting the Ark will only return during the final days of the world, serving as a celestial sign of God's final judgment. A Nevada man and his dog vanish. The unexplained disappearance of 86-year-old Patrick Carnes in April 2011 remains one of Nevada's most puzzling missing persons cases. A devoted family man and retired systems manager, Patrick was in excellent health for his age and deeply cherished his Labrador and Akita mixed dog, Lucky. In the spring of 2011, Patrick had driven from Reno, Nevada to Ohio with Lucky to visit family and explore retirement home options. He was considering relocating to be closer to loved ones and had spent several days on the road during the round trip. Nothing during the outward journey had raised any red flags. As Patrick began the return drive to Reno, he seemed to be in good spirits. He was reportedly alert, self-sufficient, and remained in contact with his family. However, something changed during that final leg of his trip. On the evening of April 13th, he was pulled over for a minor traffic violation near Wells, Nevada. The officer who stopped him noted that Patrick had been following a tractor trailer and had failed to slow down or change lanes as required. During their brief conversation, Patrick mentioned that the truck driver he was following was headed toward Elko, a town where Patrick planned to spend the night. What makes this detail especially strange is that no one has ever come forward as the truck driver Patrick referenced. It is assumed the two men had spoken, perhaps at a rest area or fuel stop, but the exact nature of their interaction is unknown. Compounding the mystery, the dashcam footage from the patrol car was too low resolution to capture any identifying details about the truck. The officer recalled Patrick as polite and lucid, joking that he wouldn't drive at night again. It would be the last confirmed interaction anyone had with him. Patrick stopped at a gas station in Wells before continuing west along Interstate 80. Whether he reached Elko remains unknown. Surveillance cameras along his intended route were not functioning at the time, eliminating a critical source of potential information. Then, early the next morning on April 14th, his green Subaru Forester was discovered abandoned in a remote field near Winnemucca, Nevada, roughly 200 miles from his destination. Even more puzzling was the fact that the car was facing east, the opposite direction of his intended route. There were no signs of mechanical failure, the car had fuel, and it appeared to be in working order. A single set of footprints was discovered leading away from the vehicle, but it was never confirmed whether they belonged to Patrick. Some reports state that all of his belongings, including his dog's leash and food, were still in the car. Others mention that his wallet was missing, though he typically carried cash rather than credit cards. Regardless, neither Patrick nor Lucky was anywhere to be found. His family quickly grew concerned when he failed to call and let them know he'd arrived home safely, which was highly out of character. Two of his sons visited his apartment, finding it empty, which matched the findings of a wellness check conducted earlier by local authorities. The Humboldt County Sheriff's Department launched a major search operation involving ground teams, dogs, and aerial support. Despite hundreds of hours spent canvassing the area, no trace of Patrick or Lucky was ever located. Given Patrick's age and the fact that he walked with a limp, it seemed unlikely he would have ventured far into the rugged terrain on his own. His family and investigators alike were left baffled by the circumstances. The idea that he had simply wandered off did not sit well with those who knew him. Years later, no suspects or leads have emerged, and Patrick's disappearance remains unsolved. Some have speculated that he may have encountered someone with ill intent, or that something unusual happened following his interaction with the unidentified truck driver. Others believe it's possible he stopped to help someone, or that he and Lucky became disoriented. Without surveillance footage, witnesses, or physical evidence, any theory remains speculative. Patrick Carnes lived a full and accomplished life. Born in 1925 in Cleveland, Ohio, he served in the Navy during World War II before earning a degree from UCLA and working for the prestigious Rand Corporation. He raised a family, maintained his independence well into his 80s, and found companionship in his loyal dog after the passing of his beloved wife, Margaret. For someone with such a rich and well-documented life, it is all the more heartbreaking that his final moments remain unknown. What happened to Emma Baum? The disappearance of Emma Baum, a 25-year-old mother of 3 who was 9 months pregnant at the time she went missing, has left her family and community searching for answers. Emma was last seen on October 10, 2023, in Gary, Indiana. According to her family, she was dropped off at her boyfriend's house that day, the same man who is believed to be the father of her unborn child. Since then, there has been no trace of her, and her loved ones have been left in distress, hoping for her safe return. Emma's family reported that she did not have a working phone at the time she vanished. She had planned to visit a local store with her boyfriend to activate the device, but she never followed up or made contact afterward. Her sister, Haley Baum Waddell, has expressed deep concern about the events surrounding Emma's disappearance and has publicly stated her belief that something isn't adding up. Their mother, Jamie Baum, has also voiced similar concerns, suggesting that Emma's partner may know more than he is revealing. The man in question, identified in public reports as Butler, has not been officially named a suspect. However, he has a history of previous legal issues, and his arrest in an unrelated case shortly after Emma's disappearance has raised questions for those following the case closely. Despite these circumstances, authorities in Gary have reiterated that no one has been charged in relation to Emma's case and that the investigation is ongoing. Commander Jack Hamady of the Gary Police Department confirmed that detectives continue to follow leads and interview individuals who may have relevant information. The situation has also taken a toll on Emma's family, especially her mother, who has been left caring for Emma's 3 children. Jamie Baum is now facing serious financial challenges as she juggles daily responsibilities and the emotional strain of searching for her daughter and unborn grandchild. According to a GoFundMe page created by supporters, Jamie is dealing with overdue rent and utilities and has received an eviction notice. Despite the community's efforts to support the Baum family, donations remain limited and the burden on the family continues to grow. Emma Baum was more than a missing person. She was a vibrant young woman known for her warmth, kindness, and the joy she brought to others. Her sister Haley described her as someone who always wanted to lift people up, who gave her love freely and made others feel included. She was also a loving mother, and her absence has left her children and extended family deeply affected. Emma's distinctive features, including her brown hair, brown eyes, multiple tattoos, and her habit of wearing colourful wigs, make her recognisable, and her family remains hopeful that someone may come forward with helpful information. Authorities received the official missing persons report on October 28th. Since then, search efforts have been persistent. Volunteers, law enforcement, and family members have walked through neighbourhoods, knocked on doors, and passed out flyers. K9 units have also been deployed in an effort to locate Emma or uncover new leads. The family believes she may have already given birth, as she was 1 centimetre dilated shortly before her disappearance. With each passing day, concern for both Emma and her baby grows. Man photographs a mysterious object above his house. On the evening of March 16, 2010, a resident of Greenville, South Carolina, experienced something extraordinary that has continued to spark curiosity and debate among those who follow reports of unexplained aerial phenomena. At 8 in the evening, the eyewitness reported noticing a bright red light moving across the sky from a distance. At first glance, it appeared as though an airplane might have been in distress, possibly even on fire, prompting the individual to quickly grab a camera in hopes of capturing the event. However, what was captured was something far more baffling than a damaged commercial aircraft. As the object approached, it became clear that it was a large black triangle-shaped craft. The eyewitness described the object as having a vivid red strobe light located at its center, which gave the impression that it was glowing or perhaps even ablaze. The triangular craft appeared to be climbing in altitude, and by the time the witness moved to the backyard to get a better view, it had already entered the cloud layer and vanished from sight. The photograph, later shared online by the observer, shows a shadowy triangular form hovering silently above residential rooftops. What sets this account apart is not only the clarity of the description, but also the fact that it aligns with decades of similar sightings reported across the world. Known as black triangle UFOs, these mysterious aerial vehicles have been described as massive, silent, and often flying at low altitudes, sometimes directly above neighborhoods or empty highways late at night. The Greenville sighting adds to a long list of unexplained reports. For years, black triangle UFOs have been a subject of intense interest and speculation. Their quiet operation, enormous size, and the often strange red or white lights seen glowing from them have led many to suspect they may be classified military aircraft. Despite numerous reports, there has never been any formal acknowledgement from the government that such craft exist, nor has any technology of this nature been publicly disclosed. What puzzles many researchers and eyewitnesses alike is the behavior of these craft. If black triangles are indeed secret government projects, why would they be flown so low and so visibly above populated areas? The risk of exposure seems at odds with the high levels of secrecy typically associated with advanced military developments. This has led some to theorize that their presence may be intentional, perhaps as a psychological operation, or that these craft may not be human in origin at all. The Greenville sighting, and the photograph that accompanies it, remains unexplained to this day. For the witness, it was a moment of disbelief and awe. For others, it serves as yet another clue in the ongoing mystery surrounding Black Triangle UFOs, craft that seem to exist on the edge of the known and the unknown, blurring the line between military innovation and something more otherworldly. The photograph stands as a haunting reminder that not everything in the sky can be easily explained. The mystery of Denise Kathleen Anderson. Denise Kathleen Anderson was just 22 years old when she quietly vanished from Sacramento, California, on April 13, 1971. More than 5 decades later, her case remains one of the city's enduring mysteries. A promising young woman with dreams of becoming an actress, Denise had recently moved into the auditorium apartments on 16th Street with 2 roommates. The building, located in Sacramento's theater district, was a fitting home for someone so involved in the performing arts. Denise was actively engaged with the Center Players theater group and had recently been cast in a role for their production of Mara Saad, scheduled to play Simone Everard. On the day she disappeared, Denise was expected at a rehearsal, but she never arrived. Her absence immediately raised concern, especially among those who knew how dedicated she was to her craft. According to reports, one of her roommates had seen her sleeping early that morning around 5:30 in the morning. The same roommate borrowed Denise's car that day and returned to the apartment at approximately 2:30 in the afternoon, only to find Denise gone. What makes her disappearance even more puzzling is that all of her personal belongings, including her purse, clothing, and other items, were still inside the apartment, except for a short wig she often wore. The circumstances led many to believe that Denise had not planned to leave for long, if at all. Her bank account remained untouched, and she never returned to her job at Wells Fargo Bank. Investigators and family members alike were left without clues. What's more, the identities of her roommates were never clearly established, making it difficult to fully reconstruct the timeline of that day. City directories from the time list Denise at her mother's home on 45th Street, suggesting she may have only recently moved into the auditorium apartments, and that her presence there was not yet fully documented. This case leaves many unanswered questions. If the roommate saw her at 5:30 in the morning, what happened between that moment and 2:30 in the afternoon? Was the other roommate home during that window, and did they see or hear anything unusual? The absence of the wig could suggest she left in a hurry or intended to return shortly, but if that was the case, what stopped her? Was she scheduled to work at the bank that same day, and if so, was the rehearsal set for before or after her shift? Since her roommate had taken the car, could Denise have attempted to walk or even hitchhike to her destination? Despite the various leads and theories, none have produced concrete answers. The theatre, the bank, the apartment building, none offered the vital clue needed to piece together her steps. Denise's story has remained frozen in time, a haunting reminder of how quickly someone can disappear without a trace. For her family and those still invested in the case, the hope remains that one day, someone might come forward with the information that finally brings clarity to her mysterious absence. The strange case of Timothy McSears. The mysterious disappearance of 65-year-old Timothy McSears has left a quiet Georgia community searching for answers and holding on to hope. A dedicated volunteer, beloved family member, and respected worker, Timothy was last seen on Thursday, March 6, 2025, at Mount Zion Baptist Church on Dunwoody Road in Walker County. Since then, there has been no confirmed trace of him, prompting an ongoing investigation led by the Walker County Sheriff's Office. Despite false reports circulating on social media claiming he has been located, officials have firmly stated that these claims are not true. Timothy remains missing, and the search continues with urgency. Timothy McSears was well known in the Lafayette area, where he worked as a concrete finisher. He was deeply involved in his church community and often volunteered at Mount Zion Baptist Church, where he was last seen. According to Sheriff Steve Wilson, Timothy was the one who would arrive early on Sunday mornings to open the church doors, a responsibility that he never missed. His consistent presence and warm spirit earned him the respect and affection of many in the area. When Timothy failed to appear at a family gathering 2 days after he was last seen, his loved ones immediately knew something was wrong. His brother, Donnie McSears, expressed the emotional toll that the disappearance has taken on the family, describing the ongoing uncertainty as almost unbearable. Donnie said that you keep expecting to see him, and he's just not there. That sentiment was echoed by Timothy's niece, Erica Madison, who described her uncle as someone full of life, humor, and generosity. The last known sighting of Timothy came from a neighbor who saw him around 6 in the evening that Thursday, reportedly throwing away trash near the church. Since then, there have been no confirmed leads, despite investigators combing the area and conducting interviews. The Walker County Sheriff's Office has emphasized that detectives are actively working the case and exploring all possibilities. A $10,000 reward has been offered for information that helps bring Timothy home, underscoring how seriously law enforcement is treating his disappearance. Sheriff Wilson recently stood with Timothy's family at a press conference, urging the public to come forward with any information that might help. He reiterated the unusual nature of the case, noting that Timothy is not someone who would typically vanish without a trace. With each passing day, the community continues to hope for clarity and resolution. Timothy's absence has left a void in the hearts of those who knew him best. As the investigation moves forward, his family, friends, and church community remain committed to finding him, refusing to give up hope. Until then, the mystery of Timothy McSears continues to weigh heavily on all those touched by his kindness, humor, and unwavering presence. The mystery of Caleb Wells. Caleb Wells, a 31-year-old father of 2 known to those close to him as Corey, mysteriously vanished in the summer of 2021 after boarding a flight from Georgia to California. His disappearance has left his family in ongoing distress, with more questions than answers, and a continued hope that one day he will be found safe. The last time Caleb's mother saw her son was on July 2, 2021. The very next day, he boarded a flight to California, a trip that seemed ordinary at the time, but what followed has been an ongoing mystery that continues to baffle both family and authorities. Caleb was known for his consistency, especially when it came to keeping in touch with family. He never missed an important call, particularly birthday wishes to loved ones. When his mother's birthday passed without a word from him, alarm bells immediately rang. It was unlike Caleb, and his absence began to weigh heavily on those who knew and loved him. Before leaving Georgia, Caleb had told his daughter Angelia, who is now 15 years old, that he would be traveling with someone named Michael Brown, a man Caleb had known since high school. This detail became central to understanding his last known movements. In September 2021, unable to bear the uncertainty, Caleb's mother, Miss Walker, traveled to California in search of her son. She traced his steps to a Motel 6 in Rowland Heights, where both Caleb and Michael Brown had reportedly stayed. While she was able to confirm through staff that both men had indeed been at the motel, privacy policies prevented her from obtaining or recording the surveillance footage. Without a legal order, she was unable to take that investigation any further. Despite this setback, her determination never wavered. Over the next 2 years, she returned to California 5 more times, each trip driven by hope and the unwavering love of a mother searching for answers. Despite extensive personal efforts and repeated inquiries, no significant breakthroughs were made. Eventually, local law enforcement added Caleb Wells to the Department of Justice's official missing persons list in California. The listing was both a sobering confirmation of his status and a small glimmer of hope that his case would receive the formal attention it deserved. Caleb's disappearance remains a mystery. There has been no confirmed contact, no financial activity, and no verified sightings. For his family, the silence is the most difficult part. His mother continues to speak openly about her hope and her faith that her son will return. She refuses to give up on the belief that one day the door will open and she will see her son again. The mystery of Joyce Irene Cogburn and Josephine Yvette Cogburn. The mysterious disappearance of sisters. Joyce Irene Cogburn and Josephine Yvette Cogburn has haunted their family and investigators since 1983. At the time, Joyce was 15 years old and Yvette was 16. The girls were living in Norman, Oklahoma, with a male family friend who had been given temporary custody of them. Their mother, a single parent working hard to raise 3 daughters while attending nursing school in Broken Bow, had entrusted the man with her children's care during a difficult period in her life. The Cogburn family's story began with tragedy. Their father passed away in a car accident in 1968, before Joyce was born. The loss placed an emotional and financial strain on their mother, who had been trying to rebuild her life while raising her daughters. Over time, the sisters had been placed with various family members. Yvette and Joyce lived with their paternal grandparents for a while their eldest sister stayed with their maternal grandmother. In the early 1980s, the man who would later gain temporary custody of the younger Cogburn girls entered their lives. Their mother had met him while working, and though he seemed like a trusted friend, questions about his true intentions later emerged. After moving in with him in 1981, Joyce and Yvette's lives seemed relatively stable until their sudden disappearance on October 2, 1983. According to the man, the sisters left the house to go to the library and never returned. He reported them missing, suggesting they had run away, but details surrounding their disappearance raised significant doubts. Authorities initially treated the case as a runaway situation, but they were never able to confirm any sightings of the girls after they reportedly left for the library. There was also no indication that they took any personal belongings, money, or identification with them. These factors cast doubt on the runaway theory and led investigators to consider other possibilities. Their older sister later shared that Yvette had confided in her about a relationship between Joyce and the man they were living with, which had ended not long before they vanished. What further raised concern was the man's behavior after the girls went missing. He broke off all communication with the Cogburn family and refused to return the girls' belongings. Though never officially named a suspect, he was never ruled out either. Following his passing and the demolition of the apartment where the girls had lived, many potential leads were lost. Over the years, there have been sporadic reports and unconfirmed sightings of Joyce and Yvette, but none have provided concrete answers. Their older sister has continued to advocate for the case, seeking answers and keeping their story alive in the hope that someday the truth will emerge. The absence of Joyce and Yvette Cogburn remains one of Oklahoma's enduring mysteries, a case that has touched many, reminding people of the importance of not letting stories like theirs be forgotten. Their family continues to hold on to hope, waiting for the day that resolution may finally come. Mysterious trail cam photo. In the dense wooded wilderness of Maine, a seemingly routine trail camera capture has ignited a wave of fascination and speculation. The image, taken by a motion-triggered camera in a remote part of the state, has been widely circulated and discussed within online communities that focus on mysterious creatures and the unexplained. What sets this particular photograph apart from typical wildlife captures is the figure at its center, a tall, shadowy creature with oddly human-like legs and the distinct posture of something that doesn't quite belong in the animal kingdom. For some, this mysterious figure is a perfect candidate for what is popularly known as the dog man, a creature that is often described as a creature resembling a werewolf, bipedal, muscular, and towering, with features that are both canine and eerily human. Others have simply referred to the image as a depiction of a werewolf, given the creature's upright posture and the visible bulk of its upper body, but what has stirred the most conversation are its legs, unmistakably shaped more like a human's than any known animal, including wolves or bears. Photographs claiming to capture dogmen are extremely rare. When they do surface, they are often criticized for being blurry or ambiguous, leaving too much open to interpretation. This image, however, stands out. The clarity, combined with the detailed structure of the creature's limbs and the surrounding environment, has led many researchers to label it as one of the clearest and most compelling dogman images to date. The reactions have been mixed, but passionate, with some users insisting it must be an unusually large wolf captured at a strange angle, while others believe it's something entirely different, perhaps a creature not yet recognized by modern science. What adds to the intrigue is the lack of manipulation evident in the image. Those who have studied it closely note that it doesn't exhibit the hallmarks of digital alteration or fabrication. The lighting, the position of the foliage, and the natural blur from motion all suggest the image is genuine. Still, its authenticity and meaning remain hotly debated. As the photo gained traction, it made its way to several online groups dedicated to cryptozoology and the paranormal, where it quickly went viral. Some saw it as definitive proof that something unknown roams the forests of Maine. Others approached it with skepticism, offering alternative explanations ranging from costume hoaxes to misunderstood wildlife behavior. Regardless of where one falls in the debate, it's clear that this trail camera image has left a lasting impression. The image taps into a deeper cultural curiosity about the wild spaces that remain largely unexplored and the legends that have persisted for generations. Whether the creature is a misidentified animal, a deliberate hoax, or evidence of an undiscovered species, it has managed to rekindle the imagination of those who wonder what still hides in the shadows. Until more evidence comes to light, the image will remain a chilling piece of the puzzle in the ever-growing mystery of the Dogman. The mystery of Clinton Sutton. Clinton Sutton was 28 years old when he was last seen in November 2014. Originally from England, Clinton had made his home in Colorado Springs and was the eldest of 4 siblings. Known for his warm personality, Clinton was described by those who knew him best as generous, kind, and always ready with a joke. His friendly nature made his sudden and unexplained disappearance all the more difficult for his loved ones to understand. At the time of his disappearance, Clinton had been living with his mother, Victoria Jameson. However, due to concerns about his drinking habits, a disagreement led him to move out. On November 6, 2014, Clinton's stepfather, Gary Jameson, gave him and a companion a ride to the Chateau Motel on South Nevada Avenue. Gary remembers giving Clinton some money for food and to cover the motel stay, noting that Clinton didn't have his wallet or any form of identification with him at the time. When Gary later returned to the motel to follow up, the front desk staff said they had no memory of Clinton or his friend checking in. Later that same day, Clinton called his mother. During the conversation, he mentioned that he had made new friends, but also shared that he was feeling uneasy about the situation. Unfortunately, his mother was preoccupied at the time and asked him to call her back in the morning. That was the last time anyone in the family heard from him. Looking back, Victoria has often reflected on that moment, wishing she had stayed on the line with her son longer. Clinton's family immediately sprang into action, printing and distributing missing person posters throughout the South Nevada area. His sister, Chesna Malone, recalled how some of the flyers were torn down shortly after being posted, something she described as unsettling. As time passed, the case became increasingly concerning to authorities as well. The Colorado Springs Police Department now treats Clinton's disappearance as both a cold case and a missing person investigation, classifying it as suspicious due to the long absence and the fact that he never accessed the federal benefits he had applied for. The family has taken all possible steps to aid the search, including submitting their DNA to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. Despite this, no matches have been found and no new leads have surfaced. Still, his loved ones continue to hold out hope, clinging to the belief that one day Clinton might come back or reach out, even just to let them know he is safe. Victoria Jameson continues to speak out about her son's story, hoping to generate new leads and raise awareness. Stanley Meyer was an American inventor who claimed to have developed a car that could run entirely on water without the need for any other fuel. His invention, known as the water fuel cell, was said to use a process known as electrolysis to separate water molecules into their constituent parts, hydrogen and oxygen, which would then be used to power the car's engine. Stanley Allen Meyer, born on August 24, 1940, resided primarily in East Columbus, Ohio throughout his life. However, he relocated to Grandview Heights, where he completed his high school education. Meyer possessed a strong passion for innovation, and following his graduation, he pursued a brief military career before considering enrollment at Ohio State University. Stanley Meyer, throughout his life, possessed numerous patents in various domains such as banking, oceanography, cardiac monitoring, and automobiles. Patents serve as a type of intellectual property, granting the owner the legal authority to prohibit others from producing, utilizing, selling, and importing an invention for a specified period. In return for this exclusivity, the owner must disclose the invention publicly. Among all of Meyer's patents, the one that garnered the most attention and sparked controversy was the invention of a water-powered car. During the 1960s, Meyer created a patented device that had the capability to produce energy using water rather than relying on petroleum fuel. Meyer gave this invention the name of fuel cell or water fuel cell. In the 1970s, following a significant increase in global crude oil prices, the cost of oil in the United States experienced a threefold surge. Consequently, the consumption of fuel became much more expensive, resulting in a complete plummeting of car sales. The US government faced immense pressure due to a reduction in oil supply from Saudi Arabia. As a result, numerous companies faced bankruptcy, and the American automotive industry suffered a substantial blow. Stanley Meyer embarked on a mission to create a groundbreaking vehicle that would transform the American automotive industry. In his pursuit, he conceptualized a retrofitted automobile known as a fuel cell that had the capability to utilize water as a viable alternative to petroleum-based fuels, such as petrol or gasoline. The objective behind this innovation was to reduce dependency on petroleum resources during an era marked by difficulties and challenges. If Stanley Meyer's assertion held true, his innovative invention could potentially spark a paradigm shift in the American automotive sector, resulting in significant cost savings for the global economy. Furthermore, it would contribute to mitigating the risk of global warming by minimizing air pollution and introducing oxygen into the atmosphere. Meyer subsequently developed a crimson buggy, which served as the pioneering water-fueled vehicle. This groundbreaking hydrogen-powered automobile garnered significant attention as it toured various locations in the United States. The public's fascination with Meyer's innovative invention was evident, even earning coverage in a local television news report. During the interview, Meyer stated that his hydrogen-powered vehicle would require a mere 22 gallons, or 83 liters of water, to cover the distance between Los Angeles and New York. Stanley Meyer passed away on March 20, 1998. While having a meal with two Belgian investors at a restaurant, Meyer abruptly rushed out and uttered the words, "They poisoned me," before tragically losing his life. The Grove City Police Force conducted an inquiry in collaboration with the Franklin County Coroner's Office. According to the coroner's report, it was determined that Meyer's passing was a result of a cerebral aneurysm caused by natural factors. Some have suggested that the businessman held a genuine belief that Meyer had created something powerful enough to challenge the dominance of the oil industry and completely transform the world. It was evident to them that Meyer's invention played a role in his untimely demise. Meyer's alleged assassination was purportedly aimed at suppressing his inventions and preventing his fuel cell technology from becoming public knowledge. Consequently, potential suspects include the executive boards of prominent automobile manufacturers, oil companies, and possibly even government entities. There have been speculations that the two Belgian investors themselves may have been responsible for his passing. The actual facts are still being debated. His supporters still firmly believe that he was taken out due to his technological advancements. Nikola Tesla's last moments. Nikola Tesla, one of history's most brilliant inventors, left a legacy of innovation and ideas that continue to influence modern technology. However, Tesla's life was marked not only by scientific genius, but also by secrecy, financial hardship, and a series of inventions that, some claim, could have altered the balance of power in the world. Tesla's sudden passing on January 7, 1943, in his hotel room in New York City, has long been the subject of strange theories. Many believe that Tesla was taken out by the government and that his groundbreaking inventions and research were seized by authorities immediately after his passing. Supporters of this theory argue that Tesla's technological discoveries, particularly those involving free energy, electromagnetic weapons, and wireless transmission of power, were seen as a threat by both the US government and other global powers. They claim that Tesla's death was no accident and that it was orchestrated to prevent his work from falling into the wrong hands, or perhaps from revolutionizing the world in ways that powerful interests couldn't control. During his lifetime, Nikola Tesla envisioned and created technology that was far ahead of its time, and some of his ideas remain revolutionary even today. One of Tesla's most controversial inventions was his work on wireless energy transmission, the ability to transmit electricity through the air without the need for power lines. Tesla believed that by harnessing the Earth's natural electromagnetic forces, free energy could be made available to everyone, eliminating the need for fossil fuels and conventional power systems. This technology, if fully realized, could have disrupted the global energy industry, which was, and still is, dominated by powerful corporations and governments. Tesla's concept of free energy directly threatened the global economic system, which is heavily dependent on the control of energy resources like oil, coal, and gas. Some researchers believe that these powerful interests couldn't afford to let Tesla's ideas reach the public. His inventions, they argue, could have freed humanity from the need to pay for energy, rendering the oil industry, utility companies, and many government regulatory agencies obsolete. Such a radical shift in energy availability and control would have been seen as an economic and political threat by the elites of the time, including influential figures in the US government. Tesla was also known to have been working on the concept of an electromagnetic weapon, often referred to as the death ray or Tesla's oscillator. This device was reportedly capable of emitting concentrated beams of energy that could disable enemy machinery or even bring down aircraft. Tesla claimed that his invention could act as a peacekeeping tool, a weapon so powerful that it would render all warfare obsolete because no nation would dare to challenge another possessing such a weapon. However, those who believe in the theory of Tesla's assassination suggest that this technology was viewed as too dangerous to be left in the hands of a single inventor or to be made public. If such a weapon had been developed, it would have shifted global military power dramatically. Nikola Tesla died in relative obscurity, living out his final years in poverty at the Hotel New Yorker in Manhattan. Officially, he passed away of natural causes. However, researchers argue that the circumstances of his passing were far more suspicious than they appeared. According to this theory, Tesla's passing was not the result of age or illness, but rather a targeted assassination carried out by government agents or intelligence agencies. At the time of Tesla's passing, the world was in the midst of World War II, and the US government was intensely focused on technological advancements that could give them an edge in the war. Tesla's research, particularly his work on energy transmission and potential weapons technology, would have been of great interest to military strategists. The theory suggests that Tesla's refusal to collaborate with the government on his more dangerous inventions led to his elimination, as those in power feared his knowledge falling into enemy hands or causing global destabilization. Adding fuel to the conspiracy is the claim that, shortly after Tesla's passing, representatives from the FBI and Office of Alien Property Custodian, a wartime US government agency, arrived at Tesla's hotel room and seized all of his papers, notes, and inventions. These documents were allegedly taken away to secure government facilities and never made public, sparking speculation about what they contained. Supporters of the theory argue that Tesla's research, particularly his uncompleted work on free energy and advanced weaponry, was immediately classified and used to further secret government projects, possibly influencing later developments in military technology and energy systems. One of the most intriguing figures connected to the aftermath of Tesla's passing is John G. Trump, an American electrical engineer, inventor, and physicist who happened to be the uncle of future US President Donald Trump. After Tesla's passing, John Trump was asked by the FBI to examine Tesla's papers and assess their importance. According to official reports, John Trump concluded that Tesla's work was primarily speculative and did not pose any immediate threat or potential for new technological breakthroughs. However, historical researchers argue that John Trump's assessment was a cover-up and that he was tasked with ensuring that Tesla's most important and dangerous inventions were kept out of the public eye. Some have even suggested that Tesla's more advanced ideas were integrated into secret government projects, leading to developments in fields such as directed energy weapons and wireless power transmission, technologies that are still being researched today, often under highly classified conditions. To this day, the whereabouts of many of Tesla's papers and personal research notes remain unknown. While some of his work has been recovered or made available to the public, a significant portion of his writings and inventions have never surfaced. This absence has led many to speculate that the US government continues to hold Tesla's most important work in secret archives, possibly using it for classified military or energy projects. The mystery surrounding Tesla's papers has only deepened the belief that his passing was more than just a natural passing, and that his work was far more advanced than the public was led to believe. Some even argue that Tesla's ideas were so ahead of their time that they were kept hidden to prevent disruptive technological advancements that could threaten the status quo. The Titanic Olympic switch theory. The sinking of the Titanic remains one of the most tragic and well-known disasters in maritime history, More than 1,500 people lost their lives when the unsinkable ship hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sank. However, amidst the many tales of heroism, tragedy, and survival that emerged from that fateful night, there lies a theory that suggests that the ship that sank wasn't the Titanic at all, but rather her sister ship, the Olympic. According to this theory, the two ships were switched as part of a scheme to collect insurance money on a ship that was already damaged beyond repair. Though this theory has been dismissed by most historians and maritime experts, it has fascinated researchers for decades. The idea that the White Star Line, the company that owned the Titanic and Olympic, would have orchestrated such a plot seems far-fetched, but proponents of the theory argue that the financial and circumstantial motivations were strong enough to justify such an audacious move. The Titanic and Olympic were two of three Olympic-class ocean liners built by the White Star Line at the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast. The third ship was the Britannic, which was launched after the sinking of the Titanic. Both the Titanic and Olympic were near identical in design, though the Titanic was slightly larger. The Olympic was launched first, in 1910, and had already been in service for a year when the Titanic set sail on her maiden voyage in April 1912. However, before the Titanic's launch, the Olympic was involved in a serious accident. In September 1911, while on her fifth voyage, the Olympic collided with a Royal Navy cruiser, the HMS Hawke, off the coast of the Isle of Wight. The collision caused significant damage to the ship's hull and required extensive repairs. The fact that the Olympic was found to be at fault for the collision meant that the White Star Line could not claim insurance on the damage, leaving the company in a difficult financial position. It is this financial strain, theorists argue, that led the White Star Line to hatch a plan: switch the damaged Olympic with the brand new Titanic and intentionally sink the ship to claim insurance money. According to the theory, the ship that hit the iceberg and sank was not the Titanic at all, but rather the Olympic, disguised as her nearly identical sister. Proponents of the switch theory suggest that the Olympic and Titanic were secretly swapped while both ships were docked in Belfast during repairs and finishing touches before the Titanic's maiden voyage. Since the two ships were nearly identical in appearance, it would have been relatively easy, according to the theory, to change the names on the ships, adjust minor details, and send the Olympic out under the Titanic's name. The theory holds that the Olympic, which was financially unviable after the collision with HMS Hawke, was deliberately sent to its doom as part of an insurance scam. The White Star Line could then collect on the insurance policy, covering the costs of the damaged ship and avoiding the massive financial loss they would have otherwise incurred. In this version of events, the real Titanic remained in service under the name Olympic for several more years. The Olympic continued to sail successfully until her retirement in 1935, but according to historical researchers, it was the Titanic all along. Supporters of the Titanic-Olympic switch theory often cite several pieces of evidence to support their claim. While these points are largely speculative and have been debunked by maritime historians, they nonetheless form the basis of the theory. The starting point for the theory is the collision between the Olympic and HMS Hawke. The damage to the Olympic was severe, and the repairs were costly. Proponents argue that the financial strain caused by this accident gave the White Star Line a motive to switch the ships in order to avoid bankruptcy. The Titanic and Olympic were near identical in design, which would have made it easier to swap them. The only significant differences were minor interior features, which could have been changed quickly. For example, it is claimed that minor modifications to the ship's windows and the number of portholes were made during the switch. Some proponents of the theory point out that the Titanic was fitted with 16 lifeboats, plus 4 collapsible lifeboats, enough for only half of the people on board. They argue that if the ship had really been the brand new Titanic, it would have had more lifeboats, suggesting that the White Star Line knew the ship was going to be deliberately sunk and didn't bother to equip it properly. The White Star Line was owned by J.P. Morgan, the American financier and industrialist. Morgan was scheduled to sail on the Titanic's maiden voyage, but cancelled at the last minute, allegedly due to illness. However, he was later seen in good health in France. Theorists claim that Morgan knew of the planned sinking and avoided the ship deliberately. The Titanic Olympic switch theory persists as one of the many theories surrounding the Titanic disaster. Since her last sighting on June 22, 1983, following a music class in Rome, 15-year-old Emanuela Orlandi, the daughter of a Vatican official, has remained missing. In the theories surrounding Orlandi's disappearance, amateur investigators have accused various individuals and groups of being responsible for her disappearance, and despite the fact that the case has never been resolved, and she has never even been located, disturbing new evidence has brought the case back to light. For the first time in over 35 years, a promising 2019 lead involving bones found in Vatican City that were thought to be hers appeared to be leading authorities in the right path. But investigators' hopes were soon crushed once more. Even now, the mystery surrounding Emanuela Orlandi's disappearance is still unsolved and unsettling. Although they lived in a small, close-knit neighborhood where their father was a powerful figure, Emanuela Orlandi's brother Pietro claimed that they had a Vatican upbringing and that they felt safest in the world. However, on June 22, 1983, their home turf proved to be anything but safe. She was studying the flute 3 days a week at a nearby music school, and that's exactly what she was doing the day she disappeared. She arrived in class and spoke with her sister afterwards, but she never returned home. Her last known communication with anyone was that phone call to her sister. The following day, Emanuela Orlandi was formally declared missing, and as soon as any tips came in, the inquiry was launched. Particularly, 2 tips, one from June 25th and another from June 28th, seemed to point investigators in the right direction. Referring to himself as Pierluigi, the first caller claimed to have seen Orlandi that day in Rome, and even gave specifics about her attire and flute that led detectives to conclude he was telling the truth. He continued by saying that Orlandi had told her sister that the girl, who was going by the name Barbarella, had fled from home in order to sell Avon goods. On June 28th, the second caller reported to the police that he had also met a young woman who had run away from home and went by the name Barbara. This man's account of seeing her at a pub close to the music school seems plausible. However, subsequent informants began discussing a plot involving the Grey Wolves, a Turkish organization who was planning to take Emanuela Orlandi and then trade her for one of their own assassins who had been imprisoned for firing at the Pope 2 years prior. To explain what transpired, several explanations have been proposed. Considering the Vatican and its surroundings are a center of mafia and religious influence, those organizations are frequently viewed with distrust. The Banda della Magliana, a criminal organization with headquarters in Rome and commanded by Enrico de Pedis, is at the center of most mafia hypotheses. According to the notion, the syndicate determined that holding the daughter of a Vatican official hostage would be the best method to recover the vast sums of money they had borrowed to the Vatican Bank but were not receiving in return. This theory has been bolstered by anonymous information to the authorities, and de Pedis' ex-girlfriend later went public with her accusation that he told her he had taken Orlandi. However, hard evidence is scant, and a police check of the gangster's grave, which one tipster had suggested might yield DNA evidence supporting the hypothesis, produced no results. There appears to be more evidence supporting the Grey Wolves' idea. On May 13, 1981, Grey Wolf Mehmet Ali Aga attempted to take out Pope John Paul II in the Vatican by firing at him 4 times, but was apprehended right away. In the weeks after Orlandi vanished, a number of anonymous calls to the authorities raised the possibility that Orlandi was being held by Turkish militants with the intention of trading her for Aga. One scenario regarding the Orlandi case, and possibly the most unsettling claim, is that Emanuela Orlandi and other girls were taken by the Vatican. According to the Telegraph, the hypothesis goes on to say that these parties included foreign ambassadors as well. The accusation can't be completely discounted, though, because the source of it was Father Gabriele Amoth, the senior exorcist for the Vatican and a man personally nominated by John Paul II. In an attempt to eventually solve this mystery, officials have pursued numerous leads and responded to a large number of tips in the nearly 40 years since Emanuela Orlandi vanished. Maybe the most thrilling tip of all was the 2019 letter that purported to indicate her final resting location. Early in the year, Laura Scrow, the attorney for the Orlandi family, got a very sinister note that included a picture of a tomb under the Vatican and instructions to look where the angel is pointing, referring to the marble angel that was watching over the crypt in question. The Vatican's top officials took notice of the anonymous tip, and spokesman Alessandro Gisotti intervened to handle the matter delicately. The fact that scientific examinations conducted on the tomb after the letter was sent indicated that it had been opened at least once recently enough for Orlandi's bones to have been hidden within is what made this tip so intriguing. Scrow added that she had been able to verify that some people knew there was a chance Emanuela Orlandi had been hidden in the tomb in a letter to the Vatican. The fact that flowers had been left at the tomb site provided even more proof that anonymous individuals had been paying visits. Now it was just a matter of searching the crypt to see if Emanuela Orlandi's remains were indeed within. The Orlandi family had previously had their hopes raised by an anonymous tip before the angel letter became public in 2019. The family most recently held its breath in unison when the Vatican found human remains on its grounds on October 2018, only to be disappointed to learn that the remains belonged to unrelated individuals. Regretfully, this occurred once more in July 2019, when no remains were found during the tomb search. Alessandro Gisotti, a spokesman for the Vatican, stated that the entrance to the tomb opened onto a large subterranean area that was completely empty and had no human remains. It was devastating news for the Orlandi family, who had spent nearly 40 years patiently and devotedly looking for the lost girl's remains. Pietro Orlandi, the brother, stated that he was relieved that Emanuela was not there. He also mentioned that his family has become accustomed to the illusions and disillusions associated with this pointless pursuit. Even so, it is nevertheless notable that the Vatican abruptly changed their mind about cooperating in this case, even if nothing was discovered. Pietro Orlandi claimed that after pleading with the Vatican several times to help with his sister's disappearance, he was positively surprised when they eventually acceded. It was suggested by Pietro Orlandi that the Vatican's denial of assistance amounted to an admission that there is a possibility of internal responsibility on their part. However, despite the Vatican's assistance, the case of Emanuela Orlandi's disappearance remains unsolved. The mystery of Kaylin Lauder. The case of Kaylin Lauder remains a haunting and perplexing mystery. Kaylin was born on January 21, 1984, and grew up alongside her brother Colton. She earned a degree in social work from Utah State University in 2006 and seemed to have a bright future ahead. However, tragedy struck her family in 2009 when her brother Colton silenced their uncle, Jeffrey Ackerman, an event that led to Colton being sentenced to 5 years in prison. Though Kaylin reportedly never exhibited signs of mental struggles, she faced prolonged periods of unemployment, which caused some distress. Her father described her as a little down due to her struggles, but her mother maintained that she was in good spirits, actively applying for jobs, and hopeful about her future. On the night of September 26, 2014, Kaylin made a strange call to the police. She reported that a fight was happening in her condo's clubhouse and insisted that weapons, including guns, were involved. When police arrived, they found a wedding reception taking place, but no signs of a fight or disturbance. The guests confirmed that nothing unusual had occurred, raising questions about why Kaylin had made the call in the first place. Just an hour later, she called again, but hung up before speaking to a dispatcher. When police called her back, she seemed disoriented, had difficulty remembering her address, and was mumbling. During the conversation, she mentioned that her roommate believed she was being paranoid and delusional. The next morning, at 8:18 on September 27th, Kaylin made her final call to the police, this time in a state of extreme distress. She claimed that there was an intruder in her condo. In the background, police could hear her shouting for the supposed intruder to leave. However, her roommate insisted that no one else was inside the home, as the door remained securely bolted. When authorities arrived, they found no evidence of a break-in or robbery, reinforcing the roommate's claim that no one had entered the apartment. This sequence of erratic behavior, distressing emergency calls, and seemingly irrational fears marked the last confirmed interactions anyone had with Kaylin before she vanished. Later that same day, security cameras captured Kaylin outside her condo complex near an area leading to a creek. At 3:30 in the afternoon, she was seen standing in the rain, dressed in shorts and a tank top, barefoot despite the wet and chilly conditions. 2 hours later, at 5:45 in the afternoon, she was recorded running across the same area. but her pace suggested that she was not being chased. In the final footage, she was seen carrying her dog back toward the same location. Her behavior appeared animated, and she seemed to be speaking either to herself or to her dog. These were the last known movements of Kaylin before she disappeared. Kaylin was reported missing later that day. For weeks, her family and friends searched desperately, hoping for a breakthrough. Then, on December 1st, 2014, more than 9 weeks later, her body was discovered in the Jordan River, approximately 5 miles from her condo. Authorities conducted an autopsy, but the results were inconclusive. While no medication was found in her system and there was no immediate evidence of foul play, her family remained deeply skeptical of the official findings. They believed that there was more to the story than what authorities suggested. Theories about what happened to Kaylin continue to circulate. One possibility is that she experienced a sudden onset of a psychological episode, which could explain her paranoia, hallucinations, and erratic behavior in the days leading up to her disappearance. Some suggest that she may have wandered into the creek outside her condo, which connects to the Jordan River. The heavy rains on the day she vanished could have caused water levels to rise, potentially allowing her body to be carried downstream. However, skeptics argue that this theory does not fully explain why she ended up in the river or why her calls indicated she feared for her life. Another unsettling theory is that foul play was involved. Some speculate that someone may have been following Kaylin, or that she encountered a threat that police failed to detect. The gaps in her timeline, the strange security footage, and her heightened fear before disappearing have led some to believe that something more sinister may have taken place. However, with no conclusive evidence supporting this theory, authorities have stood by their assessment that her death was not a result of foul play. Kaylin's case remains an open-ended mystery that continues to baffle those who follow it. The details surrounding her final hours paint a troubling picture, but without further evidence, definitive answers remain elusive. Whether she succumbed to a psychological breakdown, met with an accident, or was the victim of an undiscovered crime, her family continues to seek the truth. Until that truth is uncovered, the disappearance and death of Kaylin Lauder remain one of the most haunting unsolved cases in recent history. The mysterious case of Ray Gricar. Ray Frank Gricar, an American attorney, held the position of district attorney in Center County, Pennsylvania, from 1985 that ended in 2005. On April 15, 2005, Gricar disappeared under circumstances that remain unknown, and no communication has been received since then. Gricar contacted Fornicola on April 15, 2005, to notify her that he was entering the Brush Valley region located northeast of Center Hall. Following Gricar's failure to return home, Fornicola reported him missing late that evening. The next day, investigators located Gricar's crimson Mini Cooper in the parking lot of a local antique store in Lewisburg. The vehicle housed his county-issued mobile phone, but it did not include his laptop computer, keys, or personal wallet. Investigators found no indications of malicious intent. According to police and family members, the vehicle's position, next to 2 bridges across the Susquehanna River, had resemblances to the placement of Gricar's older brother Roy's vehicle when he took his own life in 1996. Subsequent to the identification of Gricar's vehicle, officials conducted a thorough search of the river and its banks, but were unable to locate any trace of him. Law enforcement officials also saw that the conduct of a sniffer dog in the vicinity of Gricar's vehicle indicated a possibility of his entering another vehicle with another individual. Pennsylvania officials commissioned the FBI to examine Gricar's bank accounts, credit card information, and cell phone records, but were unable to discover any indications of his whereabouts. The county-issued laptop belonging to Gricar was found by fishermen in the Susquehanna River, beneath a bridge between Lewisburg and Milton, on July 30th. However, the hard drive of the laptop was not found. Divers conducted a thorough search of the river area in close proximity to its discovery during the following days, but were unable to locate any further objects. Approximately 2 months later, a hard drive was found on the banks of the Susquehanna River, approximately 100 yards or 91 meters away from the laptop's whereabouts. Investigators speculated that it had originated from the laptop, but it was severely damaged. Despite extensive analysis by the FBI, the US Secret Service, and the data recovery company Kroll OnTrack, no retrieval of any data was made. In April 2009, Belafonte police disclosed that prior to Gricar's disappearance, someone individual had accessed the home computer at the residence he cohabitated with for Nicola and conducted online searches on subjects including how to corrupt a hard drive, how to sabotage a hard drive, and water damage to a notebook computer. In June 2011, Lara, the daughter of Gricar and executor of his estate, filed a petition with Center County to officially declare him deceased. The next day, law enforcement in Utah apprehended an individual who bore a striking resemblance to Gricar on a misdemeanor conviction, but he declined to disclose his true name. This John Doe had a striking resemblance to Gricar in terms of stature, weight, lips, and even certain wrinkles, which prompted conjecture that Gricar had been discovered. Center County authorities forwarded duplicates of Gricar's fingerprints to Utah, but both sets did not correspond. Authorities ultimately determined the identity of the man. Given his 6-year absence without any evidence of his location, his story continues to be a mystery. The mysterious case of Edvard Rustad. The disappearance and case of Edvard Rustad in 1934 remains one of Norway's most perplexing and unsolved mysteries. On January 11, 1934, police officer Einar Krogstad was on patrol in Oslo when he noticed an abandoned dark grey Dodge parked near Grev Weddellsplass. Upon closer inspection, he found the lifeless body of a well-dressed man inside, concealed under a large rug. The victim was quickly identified as Edvard Rustad, a 62-year-old wealthy businessman known for his work in real estate and scrap dealing. He had been shot 4 times in the back of the head. Rustad's case shocked the nation. Norway was not accustomed to violent crime, and the brutal nature of his death immediately grabbed the attention of the media. Newspapers were quick to speculate on possible motives, with robbery being the most obvious. Rustad was known to carry large amounts of cash, and at the time of his death, approximately 500 kroner and several bank books were missing. However, some investigators doubted this theory, arguing that the execution style suggested a more personal motive rather than a simple robbery gone wrong. Rustad was a creature of habit, a man described as punctual, sober, and highly disciplined. On the day of his demise, he left his home as usual and took the train to work with his wife, Sigrid Marie. At 1 p.m, he received a phone call, after which he told his warehouse manager that he had a meeting in 5 minutes. Witnesses later saw him at a cafe near Alexander Kielen's Place, where he stayed for about 30 minutes before leaving. This was the last confirmed sighting of him alive. The investigation into Rustad's case soon revealed a disturbing timeline of events. Witnesses reported seeing his car being driven erratically through Oslo, but by someone other than Rustad. At one point, another driver almost collided with the Dodge and clearly saw that the person behind the wheel was not the businessman. The driver was described as pale, with marked facial features and staring eyes. Later, the car was abandoned in the downtown area, where Officer Krogstad would ultimately discover Rustad's body. The discovery of Rustad's boots and hat provided an important clue. Traces of clay, mud, and dried pigments were found on them, which forensic analysis later linked to the burned ruins of the Boston Blacking Company paint factory outside Oslo. Reports of gunshots from that location at around 2 p.m. on the day of the silencing suggested that Rustad may have been taken out there before being transported back to the city. Despite this promising lead, no further evidence could confirm the theory. As investigators struggled to find suspects, theories of foreign involvement emerged. The bullets retrieved from the crime scene were made by an American manufacturer, Western, and were of a type not sold in Norway. This led to speculation that the case had connections to organized crime in the United States. Adding to the mystery, witnesses recalled Rustad meeting with 2 men in the days leading up to his demise. One of them was described as a tall, well-built man with a square jaw and pale yellowish skin. He spoke broken Norwegian mixed with English, which some identified as an American dialect. The other man was thought to be a Norwegian who had spent a significant amount of time abroad. The FBI became involved in the investigation, with Director J. Edgar Hoover himself commenting that Rustad had been taken for a ride, a phrase often used to describe mafia-style executions. However, despite the international scope of the investigation, no clear suspects were ever identified. Theories of mafia involvement were fueled by Rustad's financial success during the Great Depression, which could have made him a target for extortion or fraud. However, no direct link to American crime syndicates was ever established. The case took a strange turn when, in 1941, journalist Axel Kieland claimed that he had met a man in a Waffen-SS uniform who confessed to Rustad's demise. Years later, after World War II, an Oslo police chief publicly stated that he knew who the individual was, but refused to reveal their identity due to a lack of evidence. These revelations only deepened the mystery, leaving many to wonder if the truth had been deliberately concealed. Over the years, investigators also considered the possibility that Rustad had been involved in shady business dealings. Some reports linked him to arson-for-profit schemes operated by the Andvik gang, known for setting fires to claim insurance payouts. However, no concrete evidence placed Rustad at the center of these activities. His colleagues and associates consistently described him as an honest and respectable businessman, further complicating the theory that he had been killed over a criminal dispute. As the years passed, the trail went cold. By 1959, the statute of limitations on the case had expired, ensuring that whoever was responsible for Rustad's case would never be held accountable. Despite ongoing interest in the case, no new leads have emerged, and it remains one of Norway's most baffling unsolved crimes. Today, the mystery of Edvard Rustad's case continues to intrigue historians and crime enthusiasts alike. What happened to the giant skulls that the Smithsonian discovered at Lovelock Cave? The discovery of giant skeletons across North America has long been a topic of intrigue, with one of the most well-documented cases being the alleged findings at Lovelock Cave in Nevada. Over the years, numerous reports have emerged about the Smithsonian Institution playing a role in suppressing these discoveries, particularly those that challenge mainstream historical narratives. According to researcher Richard J. Dewhurst, evidence of a race of giant humanoids has been deliberately hidden from the public, raising questions about the true history of early civilizations in North America. Lovelock Cave is widely known for being a site of great archaeological significance. In the early 20th century, miners searching for bat guano unearthed a series of remarkable artifacts, including oversized human bones. These discoveries prompted further excavations, which revealed mummies of red-haired giants measuring between 8 and 10 feet tall. Alongside these remains were enormous sandals, measuring 15 inches long, and handprints much larger than those of an average human. The findings seem to align with Native American oral traditions, particularly those of the Paiute tribe, which spoke of a race of giant red-haired beings. According to the Paiute legend, these giants were hostile and cannibalistic, and the tribe ultimately fought and trapped them inside Lovelock Cave before setting it on fire to eliminate them. Despite these astonishing discoveries, little physical evidence of the Lovelock giants remains accessible to the public today. Many of the artifacts recovered from the site are now housed in various museums and private collections, though some have seemingly disappeared over the decades. This has fueled speculation that institutions like the Smithsonian have played a role in suppressing or even destroying evidence that contradicts the established historical narrative. Some researchers claim that the Smithsonian has a history of covering up anomalies that challenge conventional archaeology, particularly when it comes to the existence of giants in North America. Richard J. Dewhurst, in his book The Ancient Giants Who Ruled America, presents numerous accounts from the 19th and early 20th centuries describing the discovery of giant skeletons. He argues that these findings were systematically suppressed by the Smithsonian Institution, which adopted policies to exclude any evidence suggesting pre-Columbian civilizations of non-native origins. According to Dewhurst, this effort to rewrite history was motivated by various political and ideological factors, including the desire to maintain the notion that Native American tribes were the first and only inhabitants of the continent before European colonization. One of the key figures Dewhurst highlights is Major John Wesley Powell, the first director of the Bureau of Ethnology at the Smithsonian. Powell was instrumental in shaping the institution's approach to archaeology, particularly in dismissing any discoveries that hinted at advanced or non-indigenous civilizations in ancient America. His 1880 report on limitations to the use of some anthropologic data effectively set the precedent for disregarding evidence that suggested alternative historical interpretations. Powell's stance became the foundation for the Smithsonian's policies, leading to the dismissal of findings such as the Lovelock giants as mere myths or misinterpretations. Skeptics argue that reports of giant skeletons and oversized human remains have been exaggerated or misrepresented over time. They claim that many of the so-called giant bones were likely the result of misidentified animal remains, or that the skeletal measurements were inaccurately reported. However, the sheer volume of historical reports, combined with Native American legends and the tangible artifacts recovered from Lovelock Cave, make it difficult to dismiss these accounts entirely. One particularly puzzling aspect of the Lovelock Cave discoveries is the lack of transparency regarding what happened to the remains. Some sources claim that the Smithsonian took possession of several of the giant skeletons, only for them to vanish without explanation. Others believe that the institution deliberately downplayed the findings to avoid controversy. If such remains were indeed real and had been thoroughly examined, why are they not displayed in museums for further study? And why is there so little documentation available to the public? These unanswered questions only add to the mystery. The alleged suppression of evidence related to giants in North America raises broader concerns about the control of historical narratives. If institutions like the Smithsonian have actively buried findings that challenge the accepted version of history, what other discoveries have been hidden from the public? The possibility that an entire chapter of human history has been erased, or at the very least, obscured, poses significant implications for our understanding of the past. Despite efforts to discredit these claims, independent researchers continue to push for further investigation into sites like Lovelock Cave. Some believe that with modern technology and renewed interest in alternative archaeology, it may be possible to rediscover evidence that has been lost or hidden. As new discoveries are made and more ancient sites are explored, the truth about North America's mysterious past may eventually come to light. The mystery of the Lovelock Cave giants remains an enduring mystery. Whether or not the Smithsonian played a role in concealing evidence, the stories of these towering beings persist in Native American oral traditions, historical records, and the artifacts that have been uncovered. Until definitive proof is brought forward, the legend of the Lovelock giants will continue to spark curiosity and debate, challenging the established views of early civilizations in North America. The disappearance of Rondrys Jr. Phillips. The disappearance of Rondrys Jr. Phillips remains one of Louisiana's most heartbreaking mysteries. On April 5, 2018, 4-year-old Junior vanished from the front yard of his family's home in Lisbon, Claiborne Parish. His mother, Sheila Phillips, called the police to report him missing, setting off an intensive search effort that, despite years of investigation, has yet to provide answers. Junior was last seen around 11 in the morning, wearing a white shirt, blue jeans, and black and yellow rubber boots. According to reports, he had been outside with his mother's boyfriend, Nicholas Gilbert, while Sheila was inside. His biological father was incarcerated at the time. Authorities were told that Junior had wandered off, leading to an immediate and urgent search of the surrounding area. Law enforcement, volunteers, and search teams scoured the dense woods near the family's mobile home, which was located 3 miles southeast of Lisbon. Even a nearby pond was drained in hopes of uncovering any trace of Rondrys, but no new evidence emerged. As the hours stretched into days, law enforcement agencies, including the FBI and Louisiana State Police, became actively involved. A Level 2 Endangered and Missing Persons Advisory was issued, signaling the seriousness of the case. However, Junior's disappearance did not meet the specific criteria required for an Amber Alert. For an Amber Alert to be issued, authorities must confirm an unexplained disappearance, believe the individual is in immediate danger, and have enough descriptive information to aid in locating them. With no confirmed disappearance and no immediate suspect, authorities could not escalate the alert system, which may have hindered public awareness in the crucial early hours of the case. Despite exhaustive search efforts that included grid searches, helicopters, and drones, investigators failed to locate any leads. Eventually, the massive public search was scaled down, and authorities began to focus on specific areas of interest. Junior's case gained national attention when it was featured on programs such as In Pursuit with John Walsh and Faces of the Missing in People magazine. Unfortunately, while these features generated a significant response from the public, the tips that came in had already been examined by authorities, leading to no new breakthroughs. In 2020, law enforcement released an age-progressed photo of Junior, showing what he might look like at the age of 7. The FBI's Shreveport Resident Agency Office continues to treat the case as a high priority, urging the public to provide any information that could lead to his discovery. However, with no new updates, the investigation remains stalled, leaving his family desperate for answers. To this day, Junior's disappearance remains an agonizing mystery. His family and the investigators assigned to his case continue to hope that someone, somewhere, knows what happened. The Claiborne Parish Sheriff's Office, along with the FBI, remains committed to finding out what happened to Junior, determined not to let his case be forgotten. Native American tribes that reside throughout the Adirondack region share stories of their ancestors' encounters with giants. The legends of giants from the Iroquois Confederacy are deeply ingrained in the history and folklore of the indigenous tribes that once ruled the vast wilderness of the Adirondack region. These tales speak of enormous beings that roamed the forests, powerful creatures that struck fear into those who dared to cross their paths. Among the most well-known are the Seneca's Stonecoats and the Onondaga's Northern Giants, both of which depict monstrous, nearly invincible beings that preyed upon humans. Many believe these legends were inspired by real events, serving as cautionary tales passed down through generations. Today, these stories continue to fuel speculation about unexplained disappearances and strange sightings in the Adirondack Mountains. The Seneca people tell of the Stonecoats, a terrifying race of giants covered in an impenetrable layer of stone. These creatures were said to be impervious to weapons and possessed immense strength. The Stonecoats were feared not only for their power, but also for their cannibalistic nature, as they were known to hunt and consume humans. According to legend, the only way to defeat them was through cunning and intelligence rather than brute force. One story tells of the hero Scunny Wundy, who outwitted the Stonecoats by tricking them into fighting amongst themselves. This act of deception ultimately led to their downfall, but the Seneca believed that some Stonecoats still roamed the forests, hiding in the shadows and waiting for their chance to return. A particularly chilling tale recounts how a young woman encountered one of these creatures while walking through the woods. Realizing she could not outrun or overpower it, she challenged the Stonecoat to a game of hide-and-seek. The creature, confident in its hunting abilities, accepted the challenge. The young woman cleverly disguised herself by climbing a tree and covering herself with branches and leaves. The Stonecoat searched for hours but was unable to find her, eventually giving up in frustration. This story, passed down through generations, served as a lesson about the power of wit and quick thinking in overcoming seemingly insurmountable challenges. The Onondaga people have their own legend of towering, monstrous beings known as the Northern Giants. These creatures were said to be even larger and more formidable than the Stonecoats, standing over 15 feet tall with unmatched strength and speed. Unlike the Stonecoats, who relied on their impenetrable armor, the Northern Giants were pure muscle, capable of overpowering even the bravest warriors. They were said to inhabit the dense forests of north-central New York, emerging from their hidden lairs to hunt humans. The Onondaga believed that only the strongest and most fearless warriors could stand against these terrifying creatures. One of the most famous tales tells of a group of Onondaga warriors who set out on a dangerous mission to eradicate the Northern Giants once and for all. Armed with their finest weapons, they ventured deep into the wilderness, tracking the creatures to their lair. When they finally encountered the giants, a fierce and brutal battle erupted. The warriors fought valiantly, using every ounce of their strength and skill to combat the enormous beasts. After hours of relentless fighting, they managed to slay the Northern Giants, ensuring the safety of their people. This tale reinforced the values of courage, resilience, and honor, teaching future generations the importance of standing against even the most fearsome adversaries. Both the Stonecoats and the Northern Giants share common elements, highlighting the Iroquois' deep respect for strength, intelligence, and survival. The Stonecoats represented an almost supernatural invulnerability, forcing those who encountered them to rely on cunning rather than force. The Northern Giants, on the other hand, were embodiments of brute power, requiring unparalleled bravery to defeat. These legends served as both cautionary tales and cultural teachings, emphasizing that different challenges in life require different approaches. sometimes wit, sometimes strength, and often a combination of both. Modern interpretations of these legends have sparked intriguing theories about their origins. Some researchers suggest that the stories could be based on encounters with early, now extinct humanoid species or remnants of forgotten prehistoric civilizations. Others believe the legends could be linked to real, terrifying experiences with massive predators or unexplained natural events. In recent years, reports of strange sightings in the Adirondack Mountains have led some to wonder if these ancient giants might still exist in some hidden form, concealed within the vast unexplored wilderness. The legends of the Iroquois Confederacy remain an essential part of Native American heritage, preserving the values, beliefs, and mysteries of the past. Whether taken as historical truths, allegorical lessons, or supernatural warnings, the stories of the Stonecoats and the Northern Giants continue to captivate imaginations. The Adirondack region, with its deep forests and rugged terrain, holds on to its secrets, and as long as there are those willing to listen, the giants of legend will never be forgotten. The mystery of Rachel Mellon. Rachel Marie Mellon Skemp's disappearance remains one of Illinois' most haunting unsolved mysteries. Born on October 13, 1982, Rachel grew up in Bolingbrook, Illinois, with her mother, Amy, and stepfather, Vincent Mellon. She also had two younger half-siblings, Jason and Ashley. Her life was marked by instability, as her stepfather had a history of violence. Despite the turmoil at home, Rachel was known as a bright, bubbly, and kind-hearted girl who excelled in school and was loved by her friends. Rachel had a particularly close bond with her biological father, Jeff Skemp, who lived in Texas. In the summer of 1995, she visited him and expressed her desire to live with him permanently, believing she would be happier and safer under his care. However, she returned to Illinois, and the last time Jeff spoke with her was on Christmas Day of that same year. Just a month later, Rachel would vanish under highly suspicious circumstances. On January 31, 1996, Rachel stayed home from school due to a sore throat. She was alone in the house with her stepfather Vince and their German shepherd, Duke. It was an extremely cold day, with temperatures dropping to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. Around 10:45 in the morning, Rachel called her paternal grandmother to thank her for Christmas gifts. During the conversation, Rachel suddenly became quiet when her grandmother asked if Vince was there. Rachel confirmed that he was before ending the call abruptly. Vince later claimed that after the call, he and Rachel played Nintendo for a while before she went to take a nap. He then said that around 2:30 in the afternoon, he took Duke for a walk, leaving the front door unlocked. According to his account, Duke slipped out of his collar and chased a rabbit into a field. Vince claimed he left the dog to find his own way home and returned at around 3 in the afternoon. However, when he got back, he allegedly did not check on Rachel. At 3:15 in the afternoon, Rachel's younger half-sibling, Ashley, came home from school and noticed that Rachel was not there. A local real estate agent later found Duke running loose in the street and returned him to the Mellon Skemp residence between 4:30 and 5. It wasn't until Amy and Jason arrived home at 5 in the evening that the police were called to report Rachel missing. The circumstances of Rachel's disappearance were immediately suspicious. Her coat, shoes, wallet, purse, and Walkman were all still in her room, making it highly unlikely that she would have left the house voluntarily, especially in such brutal weather conditions. The blue blanket she had been wrapped in, along with 2 pillows from her bed, was missing. There was no sign of forced entry, leading investigators to believe she had not left of her own accord. When police questioned Vince, they noticed multiple scratches and cuts on his arm. He claimed they were from working on a car earlier that day. The police also searched Rachel's room and found disturbing entries in her diary. In one entry from August 1995, she wrote about how Vince had come into her room, kissed her, and touched her under the guise of teaching her about predators. Investigators also discovered an out-of-print book about father-daughter relationships in the home, along with a steak knife hidden under Rachel's pillow. Despite an extensive search involving ground, air, and water operations using geothermal imaging and drones, no trace of Rachel was found. Authorities also checked airports to ensure she had not run away to Texas to be with her father. Every avenue led to a dead end. Rachel's father, Jeff, quit his job in Texas and moved to Illinois to assist in the search. He confronted Vince, who insisted that someone must have taken Rachel while he was out walking the dog. Jeff continued to hold on to hope that his daughter was alive, keeping the same phone number since 1996 in case Rachel ever tried to reach out. In January 2000, 4 years after Rachel's disappearance, a grand jury issued a warrant for Vince's DNA samples. He was held for 9 hours at the Bolingbroke police station but refused to answer any questions, pleading the Fifth Amendment. He also failed a polygraph test. Amy, however, passed a lie detector test and continued to stand by Vince, believing that Rachel was still alive. The grand jury investigation concluded without any indictments due to a lack of physical evidence. That same year, Amy disposed of all of Rachel's belongings by donating them to Goodwill. Shortly afterward, the family relocated to Joliet, Illinois, and later moved to Tennessee. Vince continued to have run-ins with the law, facing charges for violence and drunk driving. Meanwhile, Jeff and Rachel's best friend Carrie remained active in trying to keep Rachel's case in the public eye. In 2002, the city of Bolingbroke honored Rachel's memory by planting a tree and placing a plaque in a park near her former home. Authorities have stated that they firmly believe Vince is responsible for Rachel's disappearance, but cannot charge him without solid evidence. Despite the passage of time, Rachel's case remains open, and her loved ones continue to seek justice. Rachel's father and best friend still fight to keep her story alive, hoping that one day the truth will come to light. The mystery of Rachel Mellon remains one of Illinois' most heartbreaking cold cases, with her family and friends longing for answers that may never come. The mystery of Maura Murray. On February 9, 2004, a woman by the name of Faith Westman called the Haverhill, New Hampshire police to report a car collision. It seemed like a black Saturn was trapped in a ditch not far from her house. After thanking her for her call, the dispatcher dispatched an officer. Authorities had received a second contact regarding the accident, this time from Butch Atwood, a bus driver. The woman who drove seemed to be shaken up, but she was unharmed. The woman claimed to have phoned roadside help before Atwood arrived at the crash scene, despite Atwood's assertion that he had offered to call the police. Atwood still made the police call after getting home, which was roughly 100 yards from the scene of the accident. Although he claimed not to be able to see the woman's car from his home, he could see other automobiles going by on the street. The first responding officer reached the area at 7:46 in the evening. However, the mysterious woman had vanished from sight. Authorities discovered that Maura Murray, aged 21, was the missing woman after conducting a preliminary check of the region. She was a University of Massachusetts Amherst nursing student, and earlier that day, she had left campus without informing anyone she was heading to New Hampshire, and she was never seen again after Murray disappeared in Haverhill that evening. Maura Murray grew up in Hanson. At the age of 6, the youngest child of Fred and Laurie Murray, she saw her parents divorce. Murray excelled academically as a track athlete and honor student. Despite receiving an acceptance to West Point, she chose to pursue her nursing studies at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. Although there were occasional issues, her experience there seemed to be mostly typical. Maura Murray was arrested 3 months before her vanishing for using a credit card number that had been stolen, but if she continued to behave well for 3 months, that charge was meant to be dropped. Additionally, Murray and her sister Kathleen, who was dealing with problems with her fiancé, had a tearful phone call on February 5, 2004. Murray had to be escorted back to her room because she was so upset by the call at her campus security job at the time. Fred Murray, Murray's father, left for Amherst on February 7, 2004. He claimed that after taking his daughter out to supper and car shopping, he returned to his motel. Murray was then given his car to use for the nighttime celebration, enabling her to drive back to her dorm. However, she struck a railing with her father's vehicle while returning in the early hours of the next day. The car sustained major damage, but Murray remained unhurt, but Fred soon discovered that if Murray obtained the necessary paperwork from the Registry of Motor Vehicles, his insurance would pay for the repairs. Murray allegedly seemed well when her father returned her to her hostel later that day, despite her being disturbed about the mishap. However, all changed on February 9, 2004, the following morning. Murray sent an email to her instructors informing them of a bereavement in her family and her intention to take a week off. Murray gave a call to the owner of the Bartlett, New Hampshire condo she had previously visited with her family. However, she didn't book a room. She did not make a reservation when she called a helpline for motels in Stowe, Vermont. She had even used the internet to find directions to Burlington, Vermont by that point. She didn't inform anyone where she was heading, so it's unclear what her intended destination was. Murray drove to an off-campus at 3:15 in the afternoon, and 3 took out $280. After that, she went to a liquor store and spent roughly $40 on boxed wine and Baileys. She also picked up the paperwork related to her vehicle accident from the Registry of Motor Vehicles. She put a call into her own voicemail at 4:37 in the afternoon. That was the last time her phone usage was documented. Murray's whereabouts between her Amherst errands and her automobile crash in Haverhill hours later are unknown. However, it is most likely that she was somewhere between 7 and 7:25 in the evening. The two people who reported the car accident, Westman and Atwood, called 911 at 7:27 and 7:42 in the evening. The first responding officer discovered a wrecked car, but no one was inside. The airbags were deployed and the car was locked. Evidence at the scene indicated the vehicle had been eastbound and had gone off the roadway, struck some trees, spun around, and came to rest facing the wrong way in the eastbound lane. The officer added that they could see a box of Franzia wine right behind the driver's seat of the vehicle. Additionally, they noticed crimson liquid on the car's ceiling and driver's side door. There were no evident clues to foul activity, and no tracks leading into the surrounding woods could be found in the snow. As Atwood was the last person known to have spoken to Murray, the officer initially approached him for assistance with the search. A state trooper eventually arrived, and then firemen and emergency medical assistance. It's thought that nobody ventured east during the initial search, even though they started by searching the region west of the scene. Murray's father, Fred, who learned of his daughter's disappearance only 24 hours after the collision, would later point fingers at numerous aspects of the police search operation. Fred remarked that he knew she was headed east. Her destination was Bartlett. Even as a baby, she was up there. For Christ's sake, I can still recall changing her diapers in a tent up there. Murray's phone records would suggest that she was thinking about renting a hotel in Bartlett, but the MapQuest directions she had in the car suggested to the police that she was actually going to Burlington. She had departed without making a definite reservation and without telling anyone about her plans, so it's still unknown where she was heading. During this time, several theories were shared by the media. However, her father said that she was in good spirits and had no worries or reason to run away from her life. Murray had been dealing with a lot of issues before going missing, including her legal troubles related to credit card theft, her concerns about her alcoholic sister, and the fact that she had crashed her father's car just hours before she was involved in another collision. There were indications that Murray meant her disappearance to be permanent, despite the belief held by many of her loved ones that she had just wanted to get away from the turmoil for a few days. Most significantly, when her dorm room was searched, it was discovered that she had packed the majority of her stuff into boxes before leaving. A printed email outlining various issues in her relationship with her partner was found on top of one of the boxes. Murray had left a few essentials in her car, but her backpack and mobile phone were among the few items that were stolen. Her phone was never used again, though. Every bank account connected to her has stayed empty. Furthermore, nothing more than unsubstantiated rumors and purported sightings have surfaced since Maura Murray vanished in 2004. Putting aside sentimental attachments, many have concluded that Murray did not plan to pass away that day based on things found in her car, including college textbooks, birth pills, and tooth whitener. Murray may have fled the scene to avoid difficulties after smashing her automobile a few hours after wrecking her father's car, according to a different scenario. Authorities assumed Murray had been drinking because of the quantity of alcohol discovered at the scene. Murray didn't want to take a chance on her record of good behavior following her credit card fraud arrest. If it had been warmer outside, the adjacent woods may have been a nice spot to hide out, but it was currently quite cold. Additionally, since the area was not checked during the first search, she would have had to flee on the road and move east of the accident scene, as there were no footprints discovered in the snow heading to the woods. Remarkably, a few miles from the accident scene, between 8 and 8:30 in the evening, a contractor who had been driving past on the route where the incident happened that evening later claimed seeing a woman walking westbound. The contractor was first unclear of the precise date he had seen the individual, so he didn't submit the reported sighting until months later. It's still unclear if Murray was the individual in question. Amateur investigators have looked into all of these possibilities and more in the years following Maura Murray's disappearance. Atwood, the final person to have seen Murray alive, has been the subject of other speculations. That he did not stay with Murray until assistance arrived was viewed by some as suspicious. In addition, he and his spouse relocated to Florida not long after the incident. Most startlingly of all, some citizen investigators have suggested that Murray's father may have mistreated her, possibly to the point where she fled. Murray's family has refuted this claim. The unsolved case of the Fort Worth missing trio. The Fort Worth missing trio remains one of the most baffling unsolved cases in American history. On December 23, 1974, three women, Mary Rachel Trelica, Lisa Renee Wilson, and Julie Ann Mosley, vanished without a trace while Christmas shopping at the Seminary South Shopping Center in Fort Worth, Texas. Their car was left behind in the mall's parking lot with shopping bags inside, but the girls were nowhere to be found. Despite countless investigations, tips, and theories, their disappearance remains an enduring mystery. Rachel, aged 17, Renee, 14, and Julie, 9, left for the shopping center around noon. Julie, the youngest, had asked to join the trip at the last minute because she didn't want to spend the day alone. Her mother gave her permission, trusting that Rachel and Renee would look after her. The girls had plans to return home by 4 in the afternoon, so Renee could attend a Christmas party with her boyfriend. Their shopping trip started with a stop at a local surplus store, where Renee picked up some layaway items. Afterward, they headed to the shopping mall. Several witnesses reported seeing the girls inside the mall that afternoon, and one person claimed to have seen them exiting through Sears. However, they never made it home. By evening, their families grew anxious and began searching for them. Around 6 in the evening, they arrived at the mall and found Rachel's car in the Sears upper-level parking lot. Inside the vehicle, Christmas gifts and personal belongings were found, suggesting the girls had made it back to the car. However, they had mysteriously vanished. The next day, an unusual letter arrived at Rachel's home. The handwritten note, supposedly from Rachel, claimed that the girls had gone to Houston and would return in a week. The letter read, "I know I'm going to catch it, but we just had to get away. We're going to Houston. See you in about a week. The car is in Sears upper lot. Love, Rachel." The note's envelope was addressed in pencil, and Rachel's name had been initially misspelled and corrected. The families immediately doubted its authenticity, as it made no sense for the girls to run away just 2 days before Christmas and leave their car behind. At the time, the police considered the letter genuine and treated the case as a runaway situation. This assumption led to delays in the investigation. Rachel's husband, Tommy Trelica, believed the letter was written by someone else in an attempt to mislead investigators. Over time, forensic experts analyzed the handwriting but could not definitively confirm or rule out Rachel as the author. As the years passed, theories about what happened to the three girls varied widely. Some believed they were taken by a stranger or multiple individuals. Others suggested the involvement of someone they knew. A potential connection to human trafficking was considered, but no concrete evidence supported this theory. Some family members suspected foul play from individuals in Rachel's life, but no suspects were ever officially named. In the decades since their disappearance, numerous leads have been investigated. Eyewitnesses claimed to have seen the girls in different locations, but none of these reports were verified. The case has remained active in public interest, with amateur sleuths and private investigators trying to uncover new information. Despite these efforts, no significant breakthroughs have been made. The disappearance has had a lasting impact on the families, leading to strained relationships and heartbreak. Over the years, family members have disagreed on theories and potential suspects, further complicating the search for answers. The pain of not knowing what happened to Rachel, Renee, and Julie has haunted their loved ones for nearly 5 decades. Even after all this time, authorities continue to receive tips, but none have led to a resolution. In 2022, investigators used modern forensic techniques to revisit some aspects of the case, but no new evidence has surfaced. The Fort Worth missing trio remains a tragic and unsolved mystery, a haunting reminder of how 3 girls disappeared in broad daylight, leaving behind only questions and grief. The mystery of Elizabeth Ann Beth Kenyon. Elizabeth Ann Beth Kenyon was a young woman who mysteriously vanished from Coral Gables, Florida, on March 5, 1984. Her disappearance remains one of the most unsettling missing person cases linked to notorious perpetrator Christopher Wilder. Beth was a beautiful and accomplished woman, known for her kind demeanor and intelligence. She had participated in beauty pageants, including the Miss Florida contest, and worked as a teacher. She was last seen in the parking lot of the school where she worked, speaking briefly with a security guard before leaving in her car. Beth's absence did not immediately raise concern. Her roommate initially believed she had gone to visit her parents in Pompano Beach, Florida. However, days passed without any word from her. Then, on March 8, 1984, a gas station attendant who knew Beth claimed to have seen her in the company of a man. She was standing by her car, speaking with the man who had arrived in a different vehicle. The attendant overheard part of their conversation, including a mention of Beth's picture being taken. Beth reportedly mentioned heading to the airport before leaving the station. When Beth failed to show up for work the next day, her family and friends grew concerned, and she was reported missing. On March 11th, her car was found abandoned at Miami International Airport. There was no record of her boarding any flights, and no evidence suggested she had left the area. Investigators grew increasingly alarmed as they tried to piece together Beth's last known movements. The gas station attendant later identified the man Beth had spoken to as Christopher Wilder, a name that would soon become infamous. Wilder had a history of luring young women under the pretense of photography sessions. Investigators discovered that Wilder had previously dated Beth and had even proposed marriage to her, though she had turned him down due to their age difference. When questioned, Wilder claimed he had not seen Beth in over a month, yet he had knowledge of where her car was located before this information was made public. This raised suspicions, but before authorities could question him further, Wilder embarked on a violent crime spree that would claim multiple lives. Beth's case was not the only one connected to Wilder. Another young woman, 20-year-old Chari Gonzalez, had vanished just days before Beth, on February 26, 1984. Chari had also been a contestant in the Miss Florida beauty pageant. The similarities between the two cases were undeniable. Both women were young, attractive, and involved in the same beauty contest, leading investigators to believe that Wilder may have been targeting pageant participants. Christopher Wilder became one of the most wanted men in America as he moved across multiple states, taking, assaulting, and silencing young women. He was suspected of being involved in several disappearances, including those of Mary Opitz and Tammy Leppert. His spree came to an end in Colebrook, New Hampshire, on April 13, 1984, when he was fired at and killed during a confrontation with police. Despite his death, many of the cases linked to him, including Beth Kenyon's disappearance, remain unsolved. The exact fate of Beth remains unknown. No trace of her body has ever been found, and without physical evidence, her family has never been able to get the closure they desperately seek. Many believe Wilder was responsible for her death, given his history and the circumstances surrounding her last known sighting. However, without concrete proof, she is still officially listed as a missing person. Beth's disappearance serves as a tragic reminder of the many young women who fell victim to Wilder. Despite the passage of time, her case continues to haunt those who knew her, and her story remains an enduring mystery. Investigators still urge anyone with information to come forward, hoping that one day the truth about Beth Kenyon's fate will finally come to light. This video has just been shared on social media, and it's currently going viral. However, people can't seem to agree on what it shows. In Germany, an individual has come forward with an intriguing account of capturing a perplexing object while recording a video of the moon. This incident has generated curiosity and interest among the public. On a serene and luminous night, as he carefully observed the vast expanse of the cosmos through his powerful telescope, his attention was captivated by the resplendent and captivating presence of Earth's eternal celestial companion, the moon. On that fateful night, an extraordinary event took place right in front of him, completely transforming the trajectory of his evening. This incident, unfolding before his very eyes, was so remarkable that it left an indelible mark, causing him to question what it was. With unwavering determination, he meticulously fine-tuned his camera's configuration, aiming to capture an impeccable image of the breathtaking lunar terrain. To his great surprise and amazement, he witnessed an extraordinary sight amidst the vast expanse of darkness in outer space. There, in all its glory, floated a mesmerizing red triangle, shining with a radiant brilliance. Its three sides were perfect in length, forming an equilateral shape that emitted an otherworldly crimson glow. This unique phenomenon created an enigmatic luminosity, casting an ethereal light upon the moon's surface. The man was utterly astounded, unable to comprehend what he was witnessing before his eyes. This captivating spectacle surpassed anything he had ever encountered during his extensive years of observing the celestial sphere. With a quick motion, he pressed the shutter button, capturing a succession of photographs that would forever remain imprinted in his mind. The incandescent red triangle, glowing with an otherworldly aura, had become an indelible part of his consciousness, signifying a celestial enigma of unparalleled significance. The very next day, he didn't hesitate to quickly spread his photos among the international astronomical community. With great enthusiasm, he shared his captured images and provided a thorough description of his remarkable observation on a popular online forum that attracts a wide range of amateur astronomers, scientists, and space enthusiasts from various corners of the globe. The reaction that followed was immediate and astounding, as countless individuals responded with excitement and curiosity. The flood of responses was truly overwhelming, as people from all over the world expressed their awe and admiration for his extraordinary sighting. The eyewitness's narrative instantly caught the attention of fellow enthusiasts of celestial observation, who were both fascinated and intrigued by his encounter. This unprecedented event prompted a flurry of activity among experts, as they diligently examined the accompanying photographs and diligently sought to validate the authenticity of the sighting. The enigmatic red triangle, radiating an otherworldly glow, posed a perplexing enigma that defied easy explanation. As the conversation on the internet started to pick up speed, experts in the field of astronomy and astrophysics joined in to contribute their knowledge and insights to the investigation. They carefully examined the detailed information about the light emitted by the mysterious object and conducted thorough analyses of the neighboring celestial entities. Oddly enough, one user said the following: "During a time-lapse session last month, where I captured the movement of the stars over a span of 5 minutes, I encountered an intriguing occurrence. Upon reviewing the resulting photo, I noticed a solitary red dot amidst a backdrop of stars that displayed streaks caused by the Earth's rotation. Interestingly, this red dot remained stationary, defying the expected motion." End quote. While another user said the following: "During the process of assembling my telescope a few weeks ago, I witnessed the same object. Before having everything set up, I looked through the eyepiece and saw a triangular formation above the moon. Due to the fact that my ZWO camera was not connected and configured, I unfortunately could not capture a clear photograph. Regrettably, by the time I had everything prepared and set up, the object of interest had already vanished. I have been amazed by the uniqueness of this experience and felt compelled to share it with everyone at the time. I'm really glad I found this footage and that others saw the same object." End quote. Interestingly, this isn't the first time that amateur astronomers have captured mysterious triangular aircrafts.